and we will jump in. We'll start with public comment for anything that is not on the agenda this evening. We'll move into our consent agenda. We'll take reports. In the old business section, the Mulberry Forest Montessori School is slated to be here to present to us, answer any questions, and then we may take a vote to approve that school per policy LBC. We'll review and approve policy ADF, which is the school district wellness policy. This is I believe a second reading from early July. We will move into new business where we're going to review and approve both the RMHS student handbook as well as the district-wide student handbook. Dr. Turner will share some beginning of the school year operational updates. We'll review and approve superintendent goals, and then discuss, review, and adopt or approve the PROTECT Act policy. This one was a late addition to the agenda after we got guidance from our attorney middle of this week that we needed to approve it in relatively short order to be compliant. So if we move forward with that one tonight, we'll be dispensing with our typical two-meeting policy around adopting new policies. And then we'll close out. We've got a sort of an open item here to have any discussion and share any updates on the override that may come up. So with that, we'll jump in. I'll open the floor for public comment. If there's anybody who wants to speak to anything that's not on the agenda this evening, now is your chance. Okay, seeing none. Let me go just really quickly make Mary a co-host. Mary, I've made you a co-host, so when we come to your point, you should be able to take yourself off of mute and just let me know anybody else from your team that I need to take off mute as well. All right, so let's start with the consent agenda. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Is there a second? Seconded by Sarah. Any discussion? All in favor? All opposed? And it carries. Thank you, everyone. All right, we'll go to reports. And Dr. Turner, I will start with you.
Well, this has been an exciting week here in Reading, and I will just say that my educator blood started flowing as you saw students getting on the practice fields for tryouts on Monday. And a great sign that school is about to start. We have a lot that's been going on. We welcomed new staff on Wednesday and Thursday. We welcomed 30 new staff. I'm really grateful for the work of Dr. Sarah Hardy and Dr. Jen Stice, Mackenzie Bilodeau in the Learning and Teaching Department. All of the staff who participated in the two-day program. They shared their time and expertise to welcome our newest colleagues, introduce them to our district, and help prepare them for the start of the school year. I had time yesterday to greet our new educators. They come with a wealth of experience, a wealth of different backgrounds. There were some Reading Memorial High School alumni, which was great to see. A few people this is their first job ever. And so that was really exciting, and really impressed with the quality of our new staff. In terms of connecting with the Reading community, this week kicked off a number of opportunities for me to be able to meet with folks. I got to have popsicles with our new kindergartners at Joshua Eaton, followed by a meeting with our multilingual family council, and there was a meet and greet last night with the Reading High School parents run by the PTSO. I was grateful for all of our PTOs for organizing these events. They may have seen a couple of superintendent selfies on Instagram. Olivia has trusted the superintendent with access to the social media account, and so there have been some fun feedback we've gotten from that on our Instagram account now. Earlier today, I was at Wood End with our CPAC for popsicles, and tomorrow I'll be with our Rise PTN for ice cream at Dandy's. That will cap off the week, which will be very fun. A lot more opportunities to get to meet me, and those are more informal events. There'll be more formal events as part of my entry plan, as you know. I'm also grateful for you and our leadership team for being part of our retreat just a couple weeks ago. We had a two-day retreat followed by one with the school committee. These were great opportunities to come together, get to know one another, and level set our work together. Our theme for the year is Our Story, which we had a lot of different activities and some discussions about. Just a final update on the Let Grow Challenge. wrapped up this week, and I just want to thank our Reading Children's Cabinet for launching this opportunity. For our students, we got to see a lot of students come in for prizes towards the end of the summer. 101 students participated. It was great to see students coming into the central office, completing their slips, and it was great to see a great team effort for a very positive event. A quick update on our Killam project. We're really excited to see that we have a paved parking lot for our staff. My route into work gets to get me to drive around Killam every day, so I've been able to see the progress there, and there's been some tweaks to get this parking lot paved, and grateful for both our neighbors and our crews for getting this ready for the start of school. I also want to introduce Lisa Crowley, who is our new HR director. She started on Monday. Lisa brings more than 2 decades of municipal and human resources leadership experience, having served as HR director in Medford, Methuen, and Saugus, as well as personnel director for Chelmsford Public Schools. Throughout her career, she's led collective bargaining work, staff development programs, civil rights compliance, and she brings a wealth of experience, both as with a law degree as well as in her experience with HR. She's only 4 days in, and she's already really set a great tone in the office, and it's great to have a completed HR department that we've been missing for this summer. Just looking ahead, we have most of our positions filled going into the school year. There's still a few more openings that we have, but I feel confident we'll be able to we'll have a full staff. All staff start on Monday for convocation at 8 a.m. We look forward to seeing them and looking forward to seeing our students on September 2nd, the start of the 26-27 school year.
Great. We'll go to liaison reports. I'll start at the end of the table with Tom.
No report.
Okay. Very reluctant.
Pregnant pause. Be sad.
Well, I guess I could report on the audit committee. We had a review, audit meeting. Everything's clean. There was a bit of a delay because of some changes in the audit company itself. So it's actually the 2024 audit. So we haven't finished the 2025 yet either. But otherwise it was clean and more or less a straightforward meeting.
Yes.
Just something in the news about Boston School Committee not following their procedures and losing a couple $100,000 or something.
dear.
So
Close to $1 million.
good that
It's
we're,
not a school committee audit, it's a
Yeah.
town of Reading audit.
We don't have a budget, so it'd be hard for us to lose $1 million. So, Jeffrey.
right, so the Facilities Naming Committee has met twice now. In planning for the second meeting, we realized that, so we invited the nominators to come and make their presentation, and I had thought it would be a public hearing, but I neglected to read the MGL requirement that says this has to be posted in the newspaper 2 weeks in advance of the meeting, not just the usual 2 days in advance for agendas here. So we have scheduled a follow-up meeting for that public hearing on September 14th. It probably will be here as a public forum thing, not just virtual.
Do you expect that'll be the closing meeting where you'll vote
Expect
as
that to
well?
be the closing meeting, yeah. I mean, we talked about how we might have one last meeting immediately before a school committee meeting to approve the minutes and the final report that we submit. So, yeah, I'm expecting that to wrap up in September,
Great. Excellent, thank you. Erin?
No report.
Laura?
No report.
Sarah?
No report.
Just one report from the Killam School Building Committee. The most recent meeting was last Monday. Two sort of big things of note, I would say. One is, I think as I shared before, there was about a $25 million underage, is not a word, but the bid came in about $25 million under where we'd planned, and the committee opted to retain 10 of that 25 as a separately tracked contingency for now. Doesn't mean there's an intent to spend that 10, but, formally returned basically the rest of it, or took it out of the budget, essentially, took the rest of it out of the budget. And the second piece, which is, just as exciting, maybe even more, is that the groundbreaking is scheduled for 2 p.m. on September 18th. I think I've shared that information with all of you. Everyone is certainly invited to attend. I assume there are ceremonial shovels and we get to wear hard hats. Maybe. I don't know, so, yeah, so that'll be very exciting for those that can attend in just a few weeks. All right, so let us move on then. We'll go to old business and start with the Mulberry Forest Montessori School. Yes, sir, go ahead.
I think I admit this is my first time. This is on the agenda, so I thought this was the time for me to speak, but I think I was supposed to speak at the public start of everything.
What is it you want to speak about?
Just about Mulberry Forest.
Oh, yeah, we're going to get to that now, so before we take our vote, I'll give you an opportunity to weigh in. Yep, absolutely. Nope, fair question. Okay, so Mary, you should be able to take yourself off of mute. I recognize Matt's name and also made him a co-host, so he should be able to speak. If there's anybody else on the Zoom that I need to give speaking or unmuting privileges to, let me know and I can do that as well.
Thank you so much. So Chair, I do have also another member of our team here, Rory Redgrave. And it looks like there's a couple of parents, which is really exciting. We have Sheila Bailey and Elizabeth Joyce are also here joining us tonight.
Okay, and then, so I'd say, Sheila and Elizabeth, if you would like to speak or weigh in, just ping me through the chat and, or, just mention, make a comment in the chat and we'll make sure to take you off mute when the time comes. But Mary, go ahead. So, over to you.
Wonderful. And are you all able to see my screen?
We can.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much again for having us this evening. It's a delight to be here and also just wonderful to have the opportunity to meet Superintendent Dr. Turner last week, so that was great and seems like everything is in really great hands. So, I want to be brief tonight. We've introduced and sort of sent a lot of our curricular materials in the past. We've answered a lot of kind of questions that have been asked of us, and so I wanted to just kind of briefly go through our, a little presentation about our materials. First, I'll start by introducing myself. For those who don't know me, my name is Dr. Mary Germana Seva. I hold a PhD in geography from the University of California, Berkeley. I also have an MA from UC Berkeley, also in geography, and I have a BA from Harvard in social studies. And I am a conservationist and an award-winning artist. Actually, a lot of our team is made up of artists and conservationists. Our head of music of Mulberry Forest Montessori is Father Antisi, a Grammy-nominated musician. Our theater ed teacher, also a member of our leadership team, Ashley Herring, is also an award-winning theater professional and a 20-year educator who holds a master's in theater education from NYU. We have with us also Rory Redgrave tonight, our wonderful elementary teacher, who, in addition to having an initial license in first through fifth in Massachusetts in elementary, and also I'll show Rory's bio in a moment, so I won't sort of list all of Rory's wonderful accomplishments. Rory is also a level 3 forest school certified teacher, which means that Rory has a really in-depth knowledge of what it means to teach in nature, and we're really incredibly lucky to have Rory joining us just back from the UK, where they were teaching for the last 2 years. And Matt Dunkel, also, who I'll also show Matt's full bio. Matt is an educational consultant, also a graduate of Harvard Ed School, also a graduate of Yale, and has worked in a lot of educational settings, primarily in Cambridge Public Schools, but we're just really, really lucky to have Matt here with us as well as sort of joining this team. So let me give you guys a brief introduction. Mulberry Forest Montessori, as you see here, is a graphic. Here are some of the members of our team that I mentioned, myself, Ashley Herring, and Nicoletta Livingston, an occupational therapy doctor, who actually, we recently learned that Nicoletta's husband is relocating to New Hampshire. Nicoletta will also be relocating to New Hampshire, so we're sad to lose her as an intimate member of our day-to-day staff, but she'll continue to advise us and really help us integrate that occupational therapy into everything, perspective into everything that we're doing. Mulberry Forest School, we are based at, this is our second year, that we will be based at the Girl Scout camp at Count Bryce Moody during the school year. They use that space in the summer, and so it's a really lovely operation. And we've been really just delighted to work with the Girl Scouts and sort of very happy to work with each other. We offer a nature-based Montessori program. approach to primary and elementary age students from underserved, neurodivergent, and neurotypical families in an inclusive setting. Guided by a commitment to land stewardship, place-based pedagogy, and accessibility, we foster critical thinking alongside rigorous academic and practical life skills, a love for learning, and a deep connection to ourselves, our history, the land, and one another. So this is a program, I put a note from myself as a co-founder of this program, but, really this program emerged after some of us watching our children thrive so much outdoors and really reaping the benefits of the focus and emotional regulation that nature is really proven, time-tested benefits of nature on children's focus and regulation, and seeing that there were no elementary schools that were out that kind of continue to have that nature-based setting, at least not in this, right where we are. There is actually a nature school in Lincoln, and there are some further out in western Massachusetts, but where we're located, nature preschool ends at preschool. And I really, I'll let you all read this later on and share this document with you, but I really found that, being in the forest almost every day has actually changed my life and my perspective on my own research and on my own sort of pedagogy and work as an educator at the college level, so it's been pretty incredible. So as I said, nature-based learning has been repeatedly demonstrated to support focus, emotional regulation, especially in neurodivergent and disabled children. We really do focus very strongly on academics through individualized hands-on learning, and we incorporate ecology into everything that we do. Some quick reasons as to why this program is important. 20.3% is the rate of elementary school age absenteeism in Massachusetts, and that's gone up significantly since the pandemic in 2020. And 4 to 7 minutes is the number of minutes that most contemporary U.S. children spend outside each day in unstructured outdoor play. That's like a really stunning number. In sort of the interest of time, I want to make sure we have time to answer questions, but again, our program is really strong in that we offer a graduated tuition model to allow us to welcome low-income families, and also to families, a sort of less expensive alternative from other private schools, to families who are sort of, the children in traditional academic settings just aren't exactly working for them. We need a different kind of approach. So to that degree, 64% of our kids are on scholarships, 35% right now are kiddos of color, which we're definitely hoping to increase that number of children, and 70% of the children are neurodivergent. A bit about how we operate. We run around the regular school year calendar. We operate 8:30 to 3. As I said, we teach math, language arts, science, social studies, and visual and performing arts. And we're using research-based practices from accessibility pedagogies in order to make sure we're serving every learner. Again, I'll make sure that you all have this, but just some bios of members of our wonderful staff. This is Rory. This is Nitya, our primary guide. And I'm sorry I know I'm not leaving enough time to read this very quickly. And then Matt Dunkel, who's here with us this evening, who is just really incredible, and we're very lucky to have him. A little bit about our day. We do a lot of the sort of very skills-based learning in the morning, and then we have an arts block, and then in the afternoon is sort of more hands-on ecology-based. And I think that's actually it. That's the whole presentation, and we're really grateful for the time this evening. I know I'm happy to sort of end this presentation. I'll make sure to share it with everybody so that you all have it. I know it's when I'm sharing screen, we kind of can't see each other as well. So let me stop share. Okay, excellent. So that's the sort of overview of the project. Like I said, when we came last year, we didn't have a space yet. We now do have a wonderful space, which is at the Girl Scout camp. It's a heated building, which we use when we're not outside. We are outside more than 50% of the time year-round, so the kiddos just dress in really, weather-appropriate clothing. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I missed. And again, we have a really wonderful group of both staff and also advisors, our sort of advisory board. So Mulberry Forest School is a project of the organization Access Culture, which is a recognized 501c3. on which our music teacher taught at RCTV is the president of the board, who's also our Mulford Forest, head of music, and that organization is dedicated to sort of working, bringing culture and nature to sort of the broader, sort of linking that gap between culture and nature and kind of making it accessible to a much wider audience. I want to make sure that I answer any questions that people have. I believe, just to sort of briefly touch base on one of the questions, I want to sort of again, mention that our board of advisors is really made up of an incredible group of people, each of whom bring really important skills and expertise to the project. And I know that there have been some questions that were raised about one of the members of our board last year, and I sent a sort of pretty clear timeline about that board member who has really important expertise as a third-year retired public school teacher, and we're really grateful to sort of have him on board. And I'm happy to answer any questions that anyone has. I know maybe Matt would like to just make a comment, or perhaps Lori, who is headed out of town, but if either of you would like to add anything.
I'm happy to start. My name is Matt Dunkel. I, as mentioned, have a master's from the Harvard Ed School, and have over 20 years experience in public, charter, and private schools as an administrator, teacher, organizational coach, instructional coach, etc. But I became involved with Mulberry because my son, who's now in 7th grade and is a student with disabilities, he'd been in Cambridge Public Schools for a long time. Lots of love for Cambridge Public Schools. I worked there for a long time as an instructional coach. But for him as a student with disabilities, unfortunately, the district just wasn't able to meet his needs. Over time, he's come to find much more holistic and research-based approaches that are serving him well. But one of the things he's done that's been amazing was last year, he served as an assistant teacher, even though he was only in 7th grade. This is sort of a counselor in training, would be a better word for it, but he felt cool with the name assistant teacher. And I can't tell you, like, as someone who's been in school buildings for 20 plus years, the difference I saw in my own son from being outside every day really it showed the fruit of what the research tells us for students with disabilities. I was honestly, like, some of the ways that this research-based model is being implemented, for example, the really individualized challenges and supports for every single student, whether they have an IEP or whether they're more neurotypical. Like, these are things that I wish I could do as an educator with larger class sizes, larger populations in a school building. And so to see my own son serving as like a counselor in training and helping to implement these individualized learning plans with 5-year-olds, 7-year-olds, it was one of the most beautiful things. So as an educator, someone mentioned earlier, it might have been the superintendent, that something got your educator blood flowing, and I love that phrase, so I'm gonna, with quotes, I'm gonna borrow it. I went to pick up my son one day from forest school, and it got my educator blood flowing. I was like, what are these people doing? And so now, 6 months later, here I am as an education consultant with them. So I just wanted to sort of humanize that, like, it's a research-based model, but like, the impacts on young people, particularly on people with disabilities, are unlike anything I've seen before. So just wanted to speak to that, and that's why I've gotten involved as a consultant with them. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Rory, anything on your end before we?
Sorry, I'm a little bit in and out of service, but can you hear me?
We can.
Lovely. Yeah, my name is Rory. Again, so grateful that you are having us here and that we get to talk about our school. But just a little bit more about me, because I know Mary introduced me briefly, but I've taught in Massachusetts and then for the past 4 years in London working in public schools. So I have teaching certificates in Massachusetts for elementary school, for children with moderate disabilities, and for middle school English. And then I am a qualified teacher in the UK, and it was working in England that I became fully certified as a forest school teacher. So I'm certified to lead the whole range of forest school activities and teach children how to use different tools and different skills about being outside. And I taught forest school and my fifth grade class the previous 2 years that I was teaching in London. And when I moved back to Boston, where my family is from, I really wanted to continue that work because I could see what a massive difference it makes to children who might not always be successful in the classroom, but are so brilliant and need to be in a different environment sometimes. And when I came back to Boston, I couldn't find anything like the forest school program I'd been involved with, except for Mulberry Forest School, and that's when I thought it was just such a special program that I absolutely needed to be involved with, because really nothing else existed like it. And I could see from my experience working overseas what a difference it makes to really the country to have this program as it's being instilled in England sort of nationwide. So I'm really excited to be a part of that here.
Great, thank you. I want to take a pulse of the committee. We've got, looks like 3 parents who would like to speak. Do we want to have some discussion first and then hear from the parents, or should we open it up for them first and then we'll have our discussion or ask any questions?
It'd be worth hearing from the parents first, in my mind.
Yeah, no preference.
Parents first is fine.
All right, why don't we, I'm sorry?
Parents first. is
Yeah,
good.
why don't we start with the parents first? And Sarah, I'll start with you just because you're here in person. If you could just join us at the podium, if you could just share your name and address, and you've got 3 minutes. And I'll come to those of you on Zoom right after.
Hello, Board. Thank you for having me here. My name is Jeremiah McCarthy. I'm at 92 Green Street here in Reading. I am the parent of a 6-year-old that will be attending Mulberry Forest School. This is my 17th year teaching at the Belmont Hill School in Belmont. So I'm an educator. I'm just in attendance tonight to show my support for Mulberry Forest's attempt to pursue accreditation here from the town. I'm hopeful the committee will recognize the unique value Mulberry Forest School brings to Reading families, especially families like mine with protected health conditions. I hope you will advance a transparent standard process for the accreditation proceedings. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Elizabeth Joyce, I will take you off mute, I think, and you should be able to unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
We can. Go for it.
Okay, I'm unable to, it says that I'm unable to start my video, but you just hear my voice here. I'm a parent, a Reading resident and parent of a child who has attended a forest preschool in Carlisle called Community Farm School for the past 2 years. And we are thrilled that she will be able to attend Mulberry Forest School this year in Reading. So at Community Farm School, children aged 2.5 to 5.5 spend the majority of their day outdoors utilizing appropriate gear. And I've had the joy of watching my daughter and the other children thrive in this outdoor environment. They reap enormous physical and mental benefits from the time spent outdoors, and really an incredible sense of their own capabilities and ability to adapt to all kinds of healthy challenges. And I think that one of the ways that I describe that is that in today's world, our kids are facing too much of the wrong kind of adversity and not enough of the right kind of adversity. And this is the right kind of adversity, right? And I think that, so when I learned that Mulberry Forest was going to be an opportunity for us in Reading, was absolutely thrilled, have had the opportunity over the past year to get to know Mary and her team at the school. And as an educator myself, I am beyond thrilled for this opportunity and excited for the town to recognize the value of this program as well.
Great, thank you. And Sheila Bailey, you should be able to take yourself off mute as well.
Thank you so much. I think I've met most of you previously, so thank you for letting me have the opportunity to talk again. I am a Mulberry Forest parent. I work in, I'm not as interesting as most of the teachers and people on the staff, but I'm a person with science background and a biology background from BU. And I have a 4-year-old, and I just wanted to say what an absolute change in his ability to regulate and his ability to socialize, and his diction is just incredible since he started with Mulberry last year. My son's one of the one of the little kids that was able to interact with Matt's son, and he had nothing but great things to say about him. I do think that there's something extra special about Mulberry Forest and having the kids outside. My son is a typical 4-year-old and, argues and throws tantrums, but as soon as you get him outside, he focuses, he will pick up plants and show me different parts of the plant, he will, relax and calm, and I do think that he's really learning lifelong skills to, learning and education, and, he's already started reading sight words and things like that, so I'm just so happy to see him thriving, so I hope that the school continues to grow. So thank you.
Thank you. I'll open it up if there are any questions for the team, and then maybe we'll take a motion, have any additional discussion, and go from there. So does anyone have any questions?
I'll start.
Go ahead, Tom.
I don't know if it's for the team or for us as we think it through, so I think that's a question. I'm just going to say it outright. I still have big concerns about James as it goes, as a board member, and some of the history of where he was involved in the settlements and everything else that came with that, the timeline. I don't believe the answer that we saw was accurate versus the timeline that I've seen, so I'm concerned there. I'm very happy to hear the parents' feedback, and that part is conflicting me, frankly. I still have other financial concerns as well that go with this. We haven't answered the busing situation, and now we do have Reading parents. So now we have a busing obligation as we go into this. We didn't have Reading parents last time, so we theoretically didn't have a busing obligation. Now we do. And I also, this is conflicting for me as it goes through it, because I've been a huge special education fan, proponent, and it sounds like they're doing wonderful work in that space. There is now a proportional share requirement too that we didn't talk about last time. So I think there's some financial concerns that we need to address in a year when we're going into some pretty financially challenging topics. So there's a lot of really positive things we're hearing. I still have the one major concern, and then the two financial concerns are now here as well, or one of them is remaining, has not been addressed yet, and the other one is relatively new, considering the population that we're talking about. So as of right now, I'm a no, because I can't envision more financial concerns being born, although I could be convinced otherwise, and I think I still have like I said, the big concern with the board member in question.
Anyone else?
I'll echo, similar to Tom, I have significant financial concerns related to the busing and any additional needs now with cost share and all of those kinds of things related to IEPs and special education that we don't have enough data to back up. And per Tom's point, we were going into a very tough financial fiscal year situation in the coming years.
Can I ask a clarifying question?
Yeah, go ahead.
On your busing? Is the busing concern for students who live outside 2 miles, or the busing concern is for students who, because they're getting special education services, would get bused?
We're not placing the students there, so I don't have a concern from a busing perspective for special education.
It's the outside 2 miles?
It's the outside 2 miles. And fortunately, it's somewhat central, so maybe it's relatively less of a concern, in that regard, but it still is a potential liability that for even one student would cause a rather significant financial difference for us.
Tom, I don't think we've seen a definitive answer or an example where a town was required to provide busing in this situation. Are you aware of that on either front? Because the MGL guidance is about a school that the student is entitled to attend, which I think has generally been interpreted to mean they're assigned homeschool or like a program that they're assigned to for IEP reasons or what have you.
This, I can go back to it and find it again. This in particular was with regards to this accreditation, not a school, a student is intended to, entitled to attend. If I can go back and find it, but that was part of the the accreditation process, that once we accredit an elementary level, a sixth grade and lower level school, we have that obligation. We don't have that obligation for,
Preschool?
no, we don't have it for a preschool, and we don't have it for Austin Prep,
Austin
because
Prep has sixth graders.
Austin Prep has seventh
They have
graders.
6 through 12.
Okay, well, nobody's asked for it in that particular case, if that is in fact true.
Is there no legal route by which parents could waive any supposed?
That was the question we asked last time, was whether or not there was something we can put into that, right? I think technically, parents, I mean, one of them's here, right? They could say, I have no intention of using busing, but the minute a parent needs busing, the obligation triggers in, is my understanding. Now, that was an outcome conversation from last time, and if we still haven't resolved it, then that's unfortunate, but.
Well, we haven't resolved it because I don't think there's any, either an example or a legal guidance that we have that obligation. I think you have a concern that we might lose if somebody were to ask for it and then we were to decline it and then they were to challenge it. You have a concern that we might lose, but we're trying to disprove a negative here because I don't know that exists.
I mean, we can go into all sorts of circles. I think the follow-up before was to go back to Colby and see, but the MGL, if you read it, is like black and white, right? Now, we can pull it up if we need to, or I can try to find it again if I need to, but it hasn't changed in the last year. And so if somebody were to say, hey, I want this, then I feel like we have that liability. And I understand, and Elizabeth, we see your chat, and I thank you that you say you have no intention of using it, so that's fine. And I appreciate that, right? But it doesn't mean that nobody else will want to in the future, right? And that's, the risk is the question as part of it too. And once we do the accreditation, yes, we do have to do an annual review of it, I believe.
No,
No?
our policy specifies that it's valid
It's
until.
valid until we choose to do a review.
Our policy specifies that it's valid until there's a substantive change in the educational program, which doesn't mean we can't revoke it, but the policy doesn't call for a periodic review or anything like that.
Okay.
It calls for the need for a re-review if there's a substantive program change.
Sean? Could I?
Please,
So, let me try to understand the requirement here. I mean, my understanding is that if a student asks to move to a different school within Reading, the parents then would be required to take that student to the other school. If we assign a student to, say, Birch Meadow,
From a public
and they
school
say,
perspective,
from public
yes.
school, and they say, no, I want to go to
Because
Joshua
we're
Union, it's further
offering
away.
them the public opportunity at their place that doesn't require it. In this case, this is not a public school. It's not the same issue.
but what is the rationale in your mind for there being a more liberal approach to providing busing for a family who chooses their student, not as a result of a placement, not because it's their assigned neighborhood school, not as a result of a special education placement that we've agreed to? What is the rationale for that being a more liberal approach than assigning a student to another Reading public school?
And if they ask for a bus, could we say, you can't have a bus, but you can go to the local school that's within 2 miles? If you need a bus, if you need a closer school, then you have to go to the public school?
I'm going to go back to what the MGL says. I'm trying to pull it up. It's 76, section 1. I'm trying to look at it.
It says, where does it say? If the distance between a child's residence and the school he is entitled to attend exceeds 2 miles and the nearest school bus stop is more than 1 mile from such residence, et cetera, et cetera. But that's the key phrase, if the distance between a child's residence and the school he is entitled to attend. And we're talking about cases where a student or family has opted to have their student attend a school other than the one that they are entitled to attend as a result of their neighborhood school placement. Yeah, please, Sarah.
So re-reviewing it, so if it's a parity law situation, so if we approve a private school is credited by us, we have to offer the same busing that we offer to our public school students, is my understanding of it.
I mean, we're not, MGL and our policy are very clear that we're not endorsing the school. They don't become an extension of our school system. We're merely fulfilling a statutory requirement as the approving body to say that it meets the criteria set forth, et cetera.
So Sean, let's. I hear you from that perspective, but let's read it carefully, right? Any school committee which is required by law to transport any pupil attending to an approved private school beyond the boundaries of the school district, and that's actually a good point, beyond the boundaries, shall not be required to do so further than the distance from the residence of such pupil to the public school he's entitled to attend. But we're not going beyond the boundaries of the school district, we're within the boundaries of the school district. And then the distance is not further than the school they're entitled to attend. So if the school they're entitled to attend is a mile away, and the distance between them and Mulberry is 1.5 miles, we have an obligation to get them that last half mile.
Where are you seeing that language? I want to.
It's 76, section 1, the bottom of it.
76, section 1.
It says approved private schools of elementary, right? That's the subsection that we're in. But that's part of it. I'm just one person, right? Everybody else, if you're comfortable with it, and Sean, I think you have a fair argument that the risk might be relatively low, right? So it's a fair argument. If you do a risk-reward conversation, the reward might be higher than the risk in terms of the outcomes for the students, right? But it is interesting language. One can interpret it in different ways. I could see them winning, I could see us winning. We can't answer the question about who lives further than 2 miles because we don't have a roster of students.
Well, and the roster's going to change.
The roster's going to change, yeah, whenever,
Because
exactly.
the roster is what it is now.
Right.
But
So I guess I do have a question for Mary while she's here as well. Mary, if you don't mind coming off mute, one of the other conversations last time we had was about the student population, like how many students is it now? How many are you planning to grow to? What's your capacity, right? Have you figured that out yet? Because last time you had not figured out what your capacity was, and now you actually do have a building. So with that building, does that lead to a capacity number? Where do you stand in that regard?
Sure, thank you so much for that question. Yes, right now we have 11 students. That number might grow by a couple before the school year starts. And our capacity, we're sort of really hoping for a max in this current iteration of the program of something like 25 children, and that's between school and elementary. So it's a very small group, and I would suspect less students in our school altogether, perhaps even than the number of sixth graders in one class at Austin Prep. So it's a really small, it's a pretty small community. And it's a micro school. So, perhaps if we do grow longer than that, we'll look for a second site to make sure that we're kind of accommodating everybody well.
Yeah. So the other part of that section, Sean, just to continue to read the beginning, is thank you, Mary, for that. 11 is I think you were 3 or 4 last year, so that's amazing growth for you guys. Congratulations on that. And I think having a building like the Girl Scout building helps a lot probably in that outcome as well. So, except as herein provided, pupils who attend approved private schools of elementary and high school grades shall be entitled to the same rights and privileges as to transportation to and from school as are provided by law for pupils of public schools, and shall not be denied such transportation because their attendance in a school which is conducted under religious auspices or includes religious instruction in its curriculum. that's obviously religion doesn't apply, but the first portion would. Each school committee shall provide transportation for any pupil attending such an approved private school within the boundaries of the school district, provided, however, that the distance between said pupil's residence and the private school said pupil attends exceeds 2 miles or other such minimum distance as may be established by the school committee for transportation of public school students. We can't go less than 2 miles. We can't go more than 2 miles. We can only go theoretically less than 2 miles. So we have this liability from a transportation perspective.
I think the nuance here, Tom, I totally hear your read, and I don't discount the risk. And it's been a year since I had a conversation with Colby about this, because I felt like I didn't feel like we were going to get a better answer than the conversation we had before. But my recollection is that the language in here that is important is the same rights and privileges as to transportation to and from schools are provided by law for pupils of public schools. That phrasing about the school that they are entitled to attend is a critical qualifier there. Because what we could be talking about, the example that we could be thinking about is a public versus a private school placement, right? And what you can't do is say, because somebody's in a private, because somebody's in a private placement and they're entitled to that placement, that's treated differently than a public school, placement from an IEP perspective. But that qualifier of it's the school they're entitled to attend, meaning the one they're either assigned to or the one that they've been placed into on a special education basis, I believe still applies even against this paragraph, which is why that phrasing of same rights and privileges provided for pupils of public schools. The intent of this language, as I understand it, is to ensure that there's not like a religious discrimination here where we're trying to find a workaround so that, a Catholic school or a Muslim school or a Hebrew school or whatever it might be, don't get supported in the same ways that, that public schools might if they're utilized as an entitled school for a student, so to speak. So I hear you. I mean, it's not without risk. I think it's a fair point.
I'm trying to see if I can do a locus map to see where 2 miles leads to outside of Camp Rice Moody. That's what I'm playing with.
Reading Commons and most of the South Street area is probably outside of 2 miles. The very north end of town and east to most of where the homes are in Haverhill, probably like the bottom end of Haverhill is probably outside of 2 miles as well. So it's, it's not zero, but it's probably 15 or 20% of the town that's outside of 2 miles.
Pretty much all of precinct 3 and half of precinct 4.
Yeah.
May I make just a quick comment?
Please.
I just want to say, I of course understand, particularly in an override year, these concerns about financial, the bottom line, like that's really real. And we've also asked questions and it doesn't seem that there's a lot of legal clarity or anything that we can do. But, I can say we are adjacent to 2 schools. We're adjacent to Birch Meadow. Literally, we can hear the children when they're on recess at the playground. And pretty much right next to the high school, if there were a case that someone had to be bused, we would happily allocate staff time to go pick someone up from Birch Meadow if they were to. I mean, this is like all very theoretical, but like I'm sure that there are sort of amicable ways that we could help resolve that, given that we are right next door to an elementary school. I'm not sure if that helps us out, but again, it's a pretty small group, and I would very be doubtful that this particular question would apply with our families, but that's definitely something that we can, in good faith, I think, to offer. Appreciate that.
So, I don't think this is one we're going to get a clear answer. That was my takeaway last year. That's my takeaway this time. The risk definitely exists, based on the sort of lack of clarity and potentially conflicting language between the 2 sections of MGL. I totally hear you, Mary, and I think folks were saying in the chat as well, there's no intent to pursue busing. It's a minority of town for sure, but it doesn't obviate the risk that we might end up with 2 or 3 families in opposite corners of town that are looking for a ride to school, which would require us to add a bus and incur some expense. So that risk certainly, I don't think, is one we can take to zero in this discussion. What other questions or thoughts do folks have?
How do we address the proportional share conversation? I mean, that's just as much, maybe even more. It's more of a not a liability, again, because I'm in this very weird state from my headspace, and that what I'm hearing it sounds really, really good, right? In terms of meeting the needs of those students.
Talk us through the mechanics of how your concern would come to light.
Every single one of those students would qualify for proportional share of funding from Reading Public Schools. Everyone that's on an IEP. So if we look at the.
Reading residents or all attending
All
students?
attendees, doesn't matter. We have to do this with Austin
And
Prep
he's
already.
on an IEP.
Everyone that's on an IEP.
We're responsible for child find as well, is my
Yes.
understanding. So not just on an IEP already.
Well,
we're
child find
testing
doesn't
child
change with
find,
this, right?
But in terms of testing and all those other things, that would be our responsibility.
Yes, we are
as well.
responsible for testing as well, technically. If a student shows up and they weren't tested already, didn't already have an IEP, we'd have the responsibility to test them as well. That's a larger financial number than the busing probably is. It's not, and theoretically, I mean, Dr. Turner, you may know this off the top of your head, but we might get some more money federally because of it, and then it's an offset, but it's not a perfect science with the way things work in that space. It essentially pulls down from our I'm forgetting the grant number, the IEP grants that we get from a federal perspective. It pulls down off of that number.
I did inquire about proportional share with Austin Prep, and it's a sizable amount that we are given to Austin Prep. I would just say in terms of the testing, that would be for Reading residents, as well as the child fund would be for Reading residents. So we already have the staff for that, so it would be what we do for Austin Prep, but the proportional share is definitely, and I'm not an expert in proportional share, so I learned a lot about it this past couple weeks, but it is a sizable amount that we're already giving to schools like Austin Prep, or a school like Austin Prep.
And there's no responsibility for the sending district?
In the proportional share, there's not, when at a private school, there's not, because they're not a sending district.
It's IDA funds, Title I, all federal funds, it's a proportional share from that amount.
So by the way, I just looked up Austin Prep comparatively from a 2-mile radius perspective, and there's only one small portion of South Street near Wakefield that's in the 2-mile section, that's outside the 2-mile section. There's a significantly bigger portion that's outside the 2-mile section for Mulberry Forest.
What was the population of Austin Prep when you're talking about our share?
It's much bigger, as Mary
Much,
said,
much bigger.
it's much bigger. It's
Much bigger
Yep,
school.
yep.
We're talking about,
But there's also
11
not as many
students.
kids on IEPs necessarily, proportionally. So you may have more kids there, but, I mean, overall, but when you talk about the percentage of the students, about 70%, again, this is me conflicted, right? I totally want to support the construct, but I want us to make sure we're careful about the financial liabilities that come with it. Because it's not free. A lot of people will think it's free. It's not free.
Do we have a sense of how much money? I mean, is it hundreds, thousands, millions?
It's proportional.
My understanding so I don't have the exact number for Boston Prep, but it's over $10,000.
Per student or total?
No, the total. that we're-
for Austin Prep?
It's definitely over, it's in the tens of thousands. It's definitely over 10,000.
And what's the
I don't have the
population of
range.
Austin Prep? Anyone know?
Pulling it up.
It doesn't matter what the population of the prep is, it matters how many students need IEPs.
Correct.
So the actual,
There are
this is,
plenty of students at Austin Prep on IEPs, though.
I'm
It's not
sure.
like they're
right?
turning away kids on IEPs.
It's larger, I mean, I think to your point, it is larger than what Mulberry Forest has in total students.
So there's no way to put like a per student cost on this, proportional sharing? Just so we could like roughly estimate?
Wouldn't it depend on?
It depends on what they
on
qualify
supports
for.
that
and
students
If
levels
they
of
live in
support,
Reading,
and
we'd
the
be
level
paying
of-
for it
level of
anyway, right?
It's how much you're receiving from the federal government, so that's what you're
Yeah,
portioning out.
you're passing along federal government
Depends
funding.
on IDA, depends on
Yeah.
Title I, I mean, all of that is what you're.
Yeah, that's right.
But if they
That's
live in
true.
Reading
Yeah.
and they need an IEP and they're attending Mulberry, we would be doing all of this, no matter what.
Right, but we're saying that it doesn't matter if they live in Reading or not.
It doesn't matter if they live in Reading. We have to pay for the proportional share if they don't live in Reading.
I
too.
understand, but.
If they live in Reading,
We're now
yes.
taking 11 down to a smaller number because some of them live in Reading. Correct?
From a total perspective, yes, right?
I'm just weighing like what is in the best interest of these children.
Well, I agree, and that's where I'm somewhat split,
Yeah.
right? And I would love to know more about exactly how proportional share works. It's supposed to pay for some of the services there as well, right? So if the service cost is more expensive at Montessori, theoretically, than the service cost is at Austin Prep, then even though Austin Prep is a number, Montessori could be a higher number dependent on, regardless of that, right? So essentially, it becomes almost an out-of-district related placement. I don't think it's going to be that high, so I want to be careful about that, right? But I just want us to make sure we're aware of it.
But Dr. Stice told me, she's definitely expert on proportional share. She told me that Austin Prep actually, for a while, was refusing to take the check, and they are using it, but there's not a requirement for what they can use it for.
And just to clarify, this would only be for the K through 6 students, or this?
No, pre-K through 6 as well, just like we have pre-K related
Pre-K.
IEP needs.
So do we pay a proportional share to Reading Montessori?
Good question.
Do we pay a proportional share to any
I
of
know
the
that Austin Prep's not our only school,
preschools in
so
town?
it may be, but I can't.
We don't have to certify preschools, which is an interesting question, right? They wouldn't, if they were here just for preschool, they wouldn't need our approval.
EEC does that.
But we'd have to pay a proportional share for,
I don't know, that's.
Okay.
And so your point of K through 6, I
so
think
again, I
is
feel
for
like the
sure.
numbers.
The K through 6 is for sure, because that's what we're being asked about, and that's what we know we have to do. We don't have to certify pre-K.
So let me share where I'm at on this. I hear the concerns, they're fair. I think if we were hearing that Austin Prep was $100,000 or $1 million, it would be a different conversation, maybe. I'm uncomfortable, personally, making this decision on the basis of, having to pass along federal funding that's intended to support these students. I get that it may include students that we're not directly getting funding for because they're not Reading residents. I get that it's not clean there. But I am uncomfortable making this decision on that basis or on sort of the theoretical transportation basis, particularly because we have a deficiency in our policy. Our policy is not as prescriptive as, we would probably benefit from it being. I'd be more comfortable making a determination on this basis if our policy articulated specifically that, financial impact of the schools was a consideration, or, the school's ability to provide transportation, or, any of these kinds of things. I'm personally in a situation where, on some of the macro concerns, I'd rather sort of trust that parents can do their own research about the school and the educators, and, ask whatever questions they feel like they need to get answered. And that we, from my perspective, that I at least assess it on the basis that, is sort of articulated in MGL, which is sort of the completeness, I'm forgetting what the exact language is, but the sort of completeness of the academic program and the sufficiency of the academic program and so forth. So, I'm not feeling like there's a risk here of a financial impact that's of the magnitude that it would be, devastating for us. It's not zero, it's not nothing, and in an override year that, in any year that means something, but certainly in an override year that means something. But I'm not hearing a risk of something that would be sort of financially devastating to us. We've got a special education reserve fund for a reason. There are options available to us. I'm inclined to support this at this point.
Dr. Turner, how was your review and your conversation? Was academic-wise, any other concerns you have and any other concerns? The physical building space, the location, safety, evacuation?
We had a good conversation. I don't have concerns. Our job is not to evaluate the curriculum, but to see that they have a curriculum, and they do have a curriculum. I had questions about more operational concerns than I had curriculum concerns. I did see a document that was shared with the district this spring that had safety protocols. My understanding, and I don't know if there's an update on this, that they were still waiting for a review by Reading Police and Reading Fire, so I'm not sure if there's been an update on that. But I do feel more comfortable that they have appropriate safety measures for evacuation, a review of having smoke detectors and whatnot, and other mandated things. That for sure became more of a concern, and I was able to receive a document that the district received this spring.
So Sean, to your point, I think, reading again, for the purposes of this section, school committees shall approve a private school when satisfied that the instruction and all the studies required by law equals in thoroughness and efficiency and in progress made therein that in the public schools in the same town. So we're hearing positiveness from a progress perspective. We've seen enough from a thoroughness perspective. So if you just use that logic, then I think the answer should, I guess, be we approve. I still have very major concerns in the other ones that I've talked about, but yeah, I guess it's up to people about how they want to vote.
Yeah, I do too. I think all the concerns are fair. I'm not dismissing any of those concerns out of hand. And I think it, would behoove us to develop a more substantive policy. Not that we expect one of these, this is the first time since any of us have been on the committee anyway, that this question's been asked of us. I guess last year was the first time, but this is the first school. So it's not something that comes up often, but it would probably behoove us to have a more well-articulated policy about the decision criteria. And I know there are model policies out there and so forth, so, we don't have to start from zero there, but as we sit here today, I'm largely leaning on the language you just read, and I think I find myself satisfied as far as that language goes.
Can I just?
Please, Sarah,
Not, in no stretch of any imagination undermining the amazing work that everybody is doing at Mulberry. I think it's amazing and wonderful. My biggest reservation is we have a huge unknown around the fiscal impact to us. We're going into an override. We're talking about the kinds of positions and things we're going to have to cut from the public district. I have a hard time saying, absolutely, this is a no-brainer without more data available to us. Special education, we already have challenges providing appropriate education for all of the students in our district. I just wish if we had some, picturing myself having conversations with people about the override and saying, we will likely have to cut these positions, we will likely have to do this, we'll likely have to go without. It feels like an amazing nice to have for me right now.
Okay. Thoughts from others? Otherwise, we can move to a motion. All right, let's take a motion.
Okay. Motion to approve Mulberry Forest Montessori to operate as a private school in Reading in accordance with MGL Chapter 76, Section 1, and Policy LBC.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Jeffrey. Any further discussion? All right, we'll move to the vote. All in favor? All opposed? All right, and it carries 4-2. So that registers as approval.
Thank you so much, and thank you all for sharing your concerns with us, and I do understand all of the places you're coming from, and I think the override's incredibly important, and, we'll be telling the neighbors to support it as we kind of encounter them. And of course, I hope you all, especially Tom, since you articulated an interest in nature-based education, I hope you'll all come and visit us. We did have a select board member, Karen Herrick, at our graduation this past year, so, look out for an invite to pass by. As for our students, a lot of them, my understanding actually was that children have to do their IEPs in their own home districts, and they have all been doing that. So, and, that's kind of our operational understanding. But, once again, thank you for all of your time. I know you have a lot of important business to get onto, and we're grateful, and again, certainly hope to see you all soon at Camp Breaking.
Thank you, Mary.
Thank you, and thank you on behalf of all the children that will benefit. Truly, thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening. All right, let's move on to, thank you.
Have a good night.
Let's move on to policy ADF, the school district wellness program. We're a little bit behind schedule here, but we'll pick up the pace here. So Mary, I don't know if you want to join, maybe you could sit with Tom. Dr. Turner, do you have I guess we don't really need an opening ensemble on this one, given that we talked about this the last time around.
Yeah, I'll just share that the last time you asked some questions, Tom Wise was grateful in offering to do some line edits, and so we received those line edits. Mary did a wonderful job watching this meeting and recording every suggestion that was made, and then her and Olivia worked together, and then we were able to compile what Tom suggested and what Mary heard to make recommendations based on your feedback.
Okay. Since this is a policy review, can anybody have it in front of them in the packet that can start reading so we can quickly dismiss with the reading?
I do. School district wellness program.
Motion to dispense with the reading. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Jeffrey. All in favor, any discussion? Okay. All in favor of dispensing with the reading? All opposed? Carries 6-0. Thank you. Okay. Mary, if you have anything you want to add or say, we can start with you. Otherwise, we'll just open it for any questions or feedback the group has.
Well, I'm just very grateful for this committee and for the district. It's part of the vision statement that the physical and the behavioral health and well-being of our students is a top priority, and I think that is supported by this group, and I very much appreciate that. And I also represent here the members of the wellness coordinators, who are Tom Zaya, the assistant principal for athletics and activities, and Catherine Fanzetti, the director of food services and nutrition, and Katie Fiorello, the director of K-12 health and wellness, all of whom we collaborated together on this and are a great team supporting student health.
Thank you. Tom, anything you want to add? I know you were heavily leaned in on this.
I think, I think the merged version is in pretty good shape. I thought a little bit, quite a lot about some of the other stuff that was in there as well. I might make a couple of structure changes, but otherwise I don't think it's worth going through too much of that. There was a little bit more that if I were to go through it from a pure Grammarly perspective would have adjusted to, but I chose not to do that yet because I didn't wanted to make other changes. I will say, just from a form and function perspective and a kind of a procedure type function, I don't object to Jeffrey's change in the section that he made the changes, but if we were to use our, what is the four corners of the change that's being requested, it's outside the four corners. If you think about it, almost all of us are in town meeting. We've all had this four corners conversation, right? So, from that perspective, it's just something for us to be careful of. As we look at some of these things, if they come forward, generally this would, a whole policy would be within the four corners if it was in front of the policy subcommittee. This was a particular request of a particular change. But again, I don't think anything is substantively wrong, and I think Jeffrey's suggestions do clarify quite a bit, because you can't really see the K through 12, health educator in the list of people. You can see the nurse, you can see, Mary's there, obviously, you can see, a assistant principal in there, but there's a couple of things that might be missing, and it's cleaner in the way Jeffrey presented it. So I think that's good. I think I appreciate the changes that were made in the newer version that was incorporated in our packet about, when possible, in certain cases, right? It gives us a little bit more flexibility as we go through that. And overall, I think the newer version that Olivia and Mary pulled together is in pretty good order.
Maybe we can have a debate offline about definitionally whether anything in a policy can be outside of the four corners, but we'll leave that for another day. Any other comments or questions?
So I appreciate the changes that were made there in the beginning in terms of the committee and coordinators, so that definitely clears up. There's still some issues I have, and, maybe these are kind of beyond what we were looking at. I mean, like, Smart School, USDA Smart Snack Standards appears twice, in very close proximity. Some of the beginning is good, and, if I look at the first list of bullets, ensuring, creating, incorporating, good. The second set of bullets, all students will this, an adequate amount of time is allowed. Well, let's rewrite that to be parallel, so as all students will have an adequate amount of time, right? Just sort of making the bullets sort of, match each other grammatically, which I think is what Tom was talking about, getting into Grammarly. Nutrition education, the bullets there, again, some of them are, things we'll do, and some of them are like, oh, here's some information that it's not, but, in terms of, I don't have any objections to the policy as in terms of what its, intent is. I think at some point, and maybe probably not tonight, because I don't want to drag this out, right? But that there would be some further revisions to just make it read a little better.
Happy to take into consideration any edits that you would like on that. I apologize for any grammatical errors, and I so appreciate Olivia. I do not have the editing software privileges, so I am the one who cut and pasted Google all of that to get the message across. And you may remember, Tom, we did this based on, there was a template from the Massachusetts Association of School Committees had that template, and that was where that first wording came in, and then we're putting in some of the laws, the Massachusetts laws, the USDA, which is the federal funding, we have to be compliant with that. So we're pulling in from a lot of different resources, so I apologize for anything that doesn't go smoothly, and happy to make it run a little bit more smoothly, as long as everyone is in agreement on the message here and some of the goals and standards that we're trying to comply with.
I'm hearing we can save that for the next review of this policy, so.
Yeah, I'm fine with
Okay, is there a motion, and we'll go from there.
Motion to accept the second reading of policy ADF, the School District Wellness Program.
Is there a second?
Second.
And any further discussion? All in favor? All opposed? That carries 6-0. Thank you, Mary.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Mary.
Mary.
Thank you, Mary.
Thank you all for your support.
Thank you for waiting.
Very interesting.
All right, let us move to the RMHS Student Handbook Review and Approval. Principal Callanan, if you want to take a seat up here next to Tom.
Tom's popular.
Tom's popular tonight, or we stuck him at the end of the table, which makes him unpopular. I don't know, however you want to look at it.
I think it's more that, but it's okay. Don't take offense.
Dr. Turner, Principal Callanan, whoever wants to kick off, I'll hand it to you.
I'll pass it to Principal Callanan. I've had the pleasure of, I will just say, pleasure of working very closely with Jessica over the summer, and some things that are connected to the student handbook, and I've just been very grateful for her level of detail and her real student-centeredness and trying to do what's right for kids. And so I think in these two proposals that she's going to be making in terms of changes, you'll see that thoughtfulness. And that's, I'll just, since she's here, say that the overwhelming feedback I've received from families is how supportive she has been for kids at Reading Memorial High School. So I think that's clear in this presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Turner. This is a handbook that the school council did vote on back in May, but obviously there were some things going on over the summer. So here we are. I did circle back with the school council this week because I wanted to update that the proposed change in the grade point average for the National Honor Society. Initially, we had talked about it starting with the class of 2029, I think, but after discussion with Dr. Turner, I think that it makes more sense to start it with the class of 2030. So that was not something, which are the current incoming freshmen. That was not what we talked about with school council in the beginning, or last year. So I circled back with them. They voted electronically to support that. The rationale behind, there are only two main changes. I did make the edits that people sent me that were just grammatical updates. They are highlighted in the document that I sent Olivia Lejeune to email you guys this afternoon. but essentially increasing the grade point average for National Honor Society from what is the national standard of 3.5 to 3.75 or better as a minimum, and then the following, changes that would correlate with that. So it used to be that the GPA was 3.5, and then at the end of sophomore year, students who have a GPA of 3.45 would still be invited to apply. We do have to wait till the conclusion of the year because of how our student information system works, and we cannot get the GPA into the end of the year. So that is a bit of a limitation, but essentially, came from the faculty council that oversees National Honor Society, based upon the fact that 50 to 66% of our students actually have a grade point average, a weighted grade point average of 3.5 or higher. And that doesn't mean they meet all of the other qualifications for National Honor Society, but if all of those kids apply, that's a lot. And it's great that our kids are doing very well. A lot of it, I think, also is attributed to the fact that we go by weighted grade point average, which students get that bump with honors and AP and dual enrollment. We've also seen that kids have been able to really move their GPAs, even if it wasn't where it needed to be in freshman and sophomore year, as a result of the expanded opportunities that we're giving students around dual enrollment and AP at younger grades. So that is the one piece, and then I can take questions, or I can go to the second portion.
Yeah, why don't we do them each at a time?
Yeah.
I just have a question, do we have any benchmarking on this? Is this going to be consistent with how other districts are approaching it?
I mean, I have not done that. I will tell you, in my previous school district, we also did an increase because we saw that similar, I didn't instigate this increase, it did come from the faculty council, but I think many school districts do increase it above what is the national average. And not every school district uses weighted GPA. Some do and some don't.
I'm supportive of the intent. The root of my question would be, is there a concern, any concern that it puts our students at a disadvantage as NHS is something that, shows up on a resume and might be considered in college admissions and so forth, so.
I don't think so, and actually we're increasing our bar here, so I don't think we could simply state that, in letters, the counselor letters, if a child is in National Honor Society, or put it on our school profile for, college profile.
I'm thinking more about students who might have met the threshold before and don't now, right? They lose the ability to have NHS, so if
Well, but on the flip side, if nearly 2/3 of the class is qualifying for it, I feel like
Again, that's why I'm asking from a benchmarking perspective, because if it's meaningless everywhere, and it was only meaningful here, then, then.
The thing I would say about this is that I think that's why it's smart for us to start with the incoming ninth graders, is because they know what they're getting themselves into, what the expectations of them are, and I think that's only a sign of strength for the school. And I do think it's worthy of, marketing ourselves to colleges that we have a higher benchmark for National Honor Society. So for students who are, when they are putting that on their applications, they know that we have a high measurement. So that, to me, that's an advantage. But I think it would have been a mistake for students who were already who are already our students when they're applying. I think that would be where your concern, Sean, would be. But because it's our incoming ninth graders. They know what the benchmark is, and so they can stretch to that.
And I also think it should be something internally that students strive to attain, that is not something that 2/3 of our students can simply attain. And it really is a byproduct of the weighted grade point average, which, most schools do have, but not all do, which is why I think the national average is still 3.5.
Okay, thank you.
So just a clarifying question, because you mentioned you can't calculate GPA until they've completed sophomore year, so.
Well, at the end of each year, I'm sorry. So at the end of ninth grade, at the end of 10th grade.
Right, but so who would be invited to a meeting at the end of sophomore year?
It would be any child who has starting with the class of 2030, any student, when they finish their sophomore year, that has a 3.65 grade
I'm
point
saying,
average.
would that actually be junior year they're finding out, or like when are they?
Typically,
Technically, yes.
yes.
Because it says at the end, it makes it sound like they're going to find out in the spring of sophomore year, but then
No,
you
that's
said.
just when they find out that they can apply. So then
Okay.
the application is due in the spring of their junior year, and then they find out over the summer, or this year we changed when the faculty council is able to meet. so that they were able to go through some of those after we had the grade point averages for the juniors at the end of the year. So end of sophomore year is when they're invited, end of junior year is when
Right.
they apply in May, usually by May 1st, and then they find out as quickly as possible. Sometimes it is the fall of their senior year. This year, we were able to tell students before that, but our student information system is limiting, as I'm sure you guys are aware, that, you know, it would be easier if we could calculate grade point averages.
Every half year.
Correct.
But just to clarify, is this something that's sort of promoted or talked about prior, so that when the student gets the student will get their report card, right, in late June or early July from sophomore year, they'll know that what their GPA is, correct?
Yep.
So they would know that summer whether they get a letter first or not, what their GPA is, if they wanted to be working on
Yes,
volunteer hours or something
And we
like.
did roll back so that the students can start volunteer hours from their beginning of 9th grade. So we
Great.
promote
So you're
this
talking about it from the beginning?
Yes, yes,
Awesome.
because it is hard for kids that are very busy to get all of
Yes.
those volunteer
Yes,
hours done.
yes.
So they can begin them, you know, with the hopes that they're going to be eligible for National Honor Society, you know, from day one of their freshman year.
Thank you.
Yep.
I was gonna pick on that portion of it, yeah.
That
It's
was a
not-
couple- that was a
not-
couple years ago.
Yeah, not included in that.
Yeah.
That and the leadership positions can be somewhat challenging, because
Yeah.
you can't, in many
Sneak
cases,
up
you
on
can't get a leadership position until you're a senior.
Yeah.
And what do we define as that was always a question as well, so. But otherwise, I'm supportive of this change.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jeffrey.
So when I saw that change, and it makes complete sense to me, I went back to the other section in the student handbook that refers to GPAs, and specifically the Latin honors cum laude, where it says that cum laude is any senior with a GPA of 3.5 or higher, which is apparently 2/3 of the class. So do we
It
need?
is a large number.
mean,
That was added last year, the cum laude, summa magna cum laude. We did not do it in graduation this year because the class actually came to me and asked me not to do it. We will go back to it. They feel like it's a little divisive. Most schools do it by quartile, not by GPAs, but you can do it either way. We chose to do it by grade point average, so more students were included. I mean, at that point, they've already graduated, they're already in their colleges. You know, it's more so a celebratory honor that they receive at graduation.
The cum laude section doesn't specify weighted either. So is that a,
It says
either.
either. It actually
It can
does
be
say.
either, and that is.
oh, I'm sorry, yeah.
The goal
section-
of
yeah,
that was to be more inclusive, to be honest, to include more students.
Gotcha.
Thank
I
you.
want to say, I want to continue to celebrate that. I know it's not always my choice only, but that when that happened that one year, it was a pleasant, very pleasant surprise.
Okay. Do you want to talk about the second piece?
Yep, I can do that. So the second piece is specific to, in the high school handbook and in the district handbook, but Dr. Turner and I have talked about this being a change, that our handbook, which is on top of the MIA regulations and on top of the school committee policies, strips students of any leadership opportunities. So the MIA handbook has rules, right? And so if you have a violation from the first day of competition to the last day of competition in a school year, you have a consequence of, and you have a chemical violation, you lose 25% of your season the first time, the second time it's 60, the third time you're done. Thankfully, I've never had to deal with this child that's had actually second or third, maybe 1 second in my career. And on top of that, the school and district policies remove a child's all leadership all leadership roles for up to a year. And then the school committee policy takes the MIA policy and spreads it over the course of the summer. So if a child is caught in the summer with a chemical violation, basically the MIA consequences are now applied to that child, which happens. And, you know, it's challenging situations when it does. Typically, because of our memorandum of understanding with the police department, I receive a police report and it has the information on it. I set up a hearing with the family and the student, and we've so on and so forth. The proposal here is to remove the the wording that says a student will lose all rights to continue to be an officer of that organization or as a captain and forfeits the rights for up to a year. I think it is more developmentally appropriate to take away a student's leadership roles if they commit that violation within the season. So let's say I am a basketball player and I have a chemical violation in basketball season and I'm a captain, I lose my captaincy for that season. And then after that, it's up to the discretion of the principal if that continues based upon for the next season, if they're a captain of another sport or a leader of a club or a class officer, that's up to the discretion of the principal outside of that season. So it's essentially removing that they lose it for the whole year. And kind of to Mr. Wise's point, it is very hard for students to have leadership roles, and it usually only happens when they're seniors. So when the policy says that they lose it for 1 year, it's typically they're losing all leadership opportunities, whether it's for a club, class office, or a team for an entire school year. And since our policy at the school committee level incorporates the summer, you could essentially, and I have had this, have students get in trouble with a chemical violation right at the end of, let's say, their junior year, but it's in the summer, so July 10th, and they are a captain of 2 sports or a captain of a sport and a class officer, and maybe that sport is not until the next spring, so almost a year from when they commit the infraction and the chemical violation, and you're stripping them of all of those things that they have worked hard to earn. And so like Dr. Turner said, I try to be very student-centered, and I am the one sitting down and sitting across from these students and families, and I know them, most of them very well, and I don't feel like it is appropriate for us to hold kids accountable for their decisions in their adolescence as with the severity that we are holding them accountable. And so I think there should be latitude, which is why it's written into this policy, for principals to make decisions that are more appropriate for their age. And I did include a portion about, on the second page, about clubs or activities, or that would also be class office, that there would be for 3 months. 3 months is approximately the length of an athletic season, so that's where I got that number. And I think that the district policy would then mirror, the change in the district policy would mirror the high school handbook, correct?
Yep, this is foreshadowing the district policy, but it will be the exact same language. I will just say that I think as a district, we need to do a better job of helping the community to identify where our policies are, and in fact, our chemical health policy can be found in multiple places, and it's written in multiple different ways, and so I could imagine for a family that's confusing. So there's a 2018 version and a 2022 version, so I can just commit to you that we're going to clean that up so that people are finding the most updated policies. So Jess and I feel confident that the policy, the updated 2022 policy, the district policy, and the student handbook, district handbook and the
And the
student
MIA
handbook.
policy, so there's,
The MIA policy
every time there's a situation, there's 4 policies.
They are in line, so that there will be clarity for families, which I think is the most important.
Okay. So I agree with the premise on this one as well, but let me just play out a couple of scenarios and ask you.
Can I add something first?
Please, yes.
I also want to add that in addition, it's not here, but it is obviously in the student handbook, that when a student has an infraction, that we require them to go to class with the Reading Coalition. They must finish that class before they can be reinstated, and that they also are referred to our adjustment counselor for 3 sessions as a result, so that there's also a education side of it and support side of it in addition to. That's not part of MIA policy or anything like that, but that's something that we require as, and we've shifted in even our school discipline with much more education piece of it too when there are chemical violations. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I just
No, it's helpful clarification. So if something happens on July 10th, which was the example you gave,
yeah.
the student's involved, has a chemical issue on July 10th, they're not in season, by default, there'd be no impact on their captaincy or their eligibility for captaincy in, say, the fall.
It would be up to the discretion of the principal, which is
Okay.
what that says, yeah.
Okay.
Based on the severity of the
Based on the
incident.
severity of the situation.
Right.
But they would still be losing, they would still have to adhere to the MIA policy because the school committee policy
Yep.
covers the summer.
Yep. And then, in the case of the student leadership position, so student leaders are elected they're elected at the beginning of the school year, not at the end of the prior year in most cases, right?
It depends, you know.
It depends,
yeah.
okay.
I think most of
So
the, many of the clubs are elected at the end of the
imagine
Yeah.
year.
Captains are usually elected the year before, a lot of times class officers the year before, club leaders are many times the year before.
Well, so that's
they
what kind of what I'm
know
getting at
going
is
in-
like, is a class officer during the summer, right?
Yes.
Yeah, there's
Right?
stuff happening.
So that's treated,
Captains are captains during the summer. There's captains practices during the summer.
right, but they're not in season.
Yeah, I know.
So that it feels like a potential for differential treatment based on the nature of the activity, which I get it, it gives you
There is
discretion.
I'm just gonna say that there is a differential treatment and inequitable treatment right now because we are penalizing students that are caught only in Reading, right? Since I have been here, even when I was a principal in my previous district, I think there's been only one time that I ever received a police report from another town. So we have school choice students, we have students live in Boston, we have kids on vacation, who probably have slip-ups, but we are unduly giving consequences. And I do not think that chemical violations are not a big deal. I think that when you strip these opportunities from students that are participating and have participated in extracurriculars for several years and have demonstrated leadership, and we do it in such a draconian way that, we're putting our young people at risk because they feel like everything's being ripped away from them, and they have to have a means to rebound. And so I will not be light on the consequences, and I'm not. You can ask any student and family that I've had to have these conversations with, but I think we're focused so much on what is the consequence and kind of beating down these kids and families, instead of, how do we make them learn from the situation and actually carry forward? I mean, we have regulations from the MIA, and then some, and then some, and then some in Reading. And so I just think this is more of an appropriate adjustment to our consequences, for our young people.
I'm, just to be clear, I'm totally with you on what you're trying to do, and I agree with you that there are inequities created by things like it happens in town versus out of town. I don't want to introduce another inequity where the policy would suggest that there's potentially differential treatment because somebody's a class officer versus a captain of a sport that's not in season. And I understand that the policy gives you discretion, so you could sort of, figure out the right way to apply it fairly. But that does feel like just a watch area for me as I think about how the policy is constructed, is that, it doesn't, because of the nature of timing and the role being in season versus out of season for an elected, for a leadership position versus a captaincy, I think we would want them to be treated the same, and the policy doesn't necessarily require it. It leaves it up to your discretion to make sure they're treated the same. And that's, I can get comfortable with that, but generally speaking, when we think about policies and handbooks, you try to make it, so that it's not contingent on the person in the seat for it to be applied in the, roughly in the same way in
Well,
those
essentially what it's
circumstances.
saying is that a student loses their leadership opportunity if it happens when they're serving in that role. So if they're in the season when they are a captain, they lose that captaincy. If they are serving as a class officer and they know they're serving as a class officer, they lose it for 3 months. If they haven't been elected yet, then they don't lose it because they haven't been in the role yet. The kids do not think, if I do this, then this, and this are gonna happen. They think, I'm gonna do this, and this, they probably don't even always think about the next.
This is gonna be fun, I'm gonna do it. That's what they think.
We want them to think contingency plans, but that's not how their brains work. And I'm talking about some of the kids that are top students in executive functioning, right? Not students that even necessarily struggle with those things. And so I do not want this to be interpreted that I am light on discipline or consequences in any way. I just really feel like whenever this was developed, it was maybe reactionary to something that was happening in the community, and there are many other things that we can do to teach kids a lesson without taking away everything. And that's really how they feel, you know, when all of these things that they've worked for are taken away.
Sean?
Jeffrey, please.
So, I mean, I struggle a little bit with this because I feel like the team captains are supposed to be elected because they're a little more mature, they're more aware of some of the things. So I struggle a little bit with removing this because we still think chemical violations are a serious problem. I do want to kind of push a little further on some of these examples. Like if it's over the summer and the season doesn't start until the winter, but they're having captains practices, are they?
I don't think the captains, usually captains practices, which aren't really an approved thing.
We know that, but it
Okay.
still happens.
If the kids get together on their own and the captains happen to be there, which is not, the coach is not there, I'm just being clear, that would be the season prior to. So, if you are a fall athlete, they might be getting together in the summer. They might be in a basketball league possibly, but it's nothing that actually is tied to the school. And there can be any kid that organizes it. A lot of times they are referred to as, practices or lifts or joining a basketball league, at Danvers Indoor Sports or something like that. All of which are good things for our students to be involved in, but they're not all on the backs of the team captains.
The other thing is that when when they're not in season, that the school can't control anything that the kids are doing with that sport. So coach is actually disbarred from actually being in the presence of the kids practicing, organizing things, and so it's just not going to be possible to have oversight over, they're doing a fundraiser that, well, you're not really the captain right now, and so you can't lead this fundraiser. Like, that's just not going to be possible for the school to manage. So I think what the spirit is when they are in season, that this is would be the beginning of their.
Yeah, and I do agree with you, Dr. Crum, that yes, typically your team captains are more mature, but they are still children, right? They are still adolescents. They are still not adults usually. And, students, young people should be able to have mistakes and not be something that is going to change the trajectory of their lives. And a lot of times they feel that way, when this is imposed. It's not always 100% accurate, but I worry about the impulsivity of students that are making decisions making bad decisions, but also when they have a consequence, making a decision because they're upset that's impulsive. That is also dangerous. We operate in a time where social emotional is something that we should all be considering. I think we all do, but this is something that I think we could do that could positively impact students and families.
Can I just say apologies if this was clear to everybody else. I'm starting to get tired. It's been a long day. So following Jeffrey's examples, so say there's a group of kids, chemical violation, somebody plays a fall sport, so it's July 10th, they play a fall sport, they're a captain. It's July 10th and I play a winter sport and I'm the captain. What kind of consequences? So I don't want the perception to be, well, if I don't screw around during my season, I won't lose my privileges kind of thing.
Well, remember, they're also already losing 25% of their season. So
that's the MIA rule of.
Well, it's an MIA rule during the school year, but the school committee policy applies to the whole summer from the beginning of 8th grade until graduation or they leave.
That's not true anymore. We struck that.
No, it's in the policy. Believe me, I've read it about 17 times.
This might go to the version issue that Dr. Turner is talking about.
It still says the entire year round. There's a term, it doesn't say summer, it says year round.
You removed a lot, but I believe that, I'm going to look through it, but I believe you kept the year round.
I have no recollection of that.
This is,
Sarah, did I answer your question?
I think so.
Okay. So yes, the captaincy would not be something that was automatically taken. It could still be taken based upon this.
Based on the severity.
However, if it's their first infraction, it's 25% of their games. They can't play in scrimmages. They can't dress until, no matter if their first sport is spring or fall.
Yes, that does answer it. I think what Jeffrey said earlier around that, these are leaders and our student leaders, and so definitely want to make sure whatever you lay out is fair, but also clear about, there are no loopholes.
Yes.
And how does this work for, like, the hypothetical class officer? I mean, July 10th, 3 months, I mean, are they going to elect a replacement class officer, or is like, well, you know, we know that you're going to be trash
there's
treasurer again in October, so we'll just,
Well, there's a vice president, so in theory, the vice president would step in and the president would not be able to do, or if it happened to be a president, you know, it
I
could be
was
any.
saying treasurer, right? So,
Yes, they would probably, someone would fill in, you know, until that, you know, 3 months is expired.
So, the point of confusion, you're right that the procedure says year-round. The policy does not. So JICH does not say year-round. In fact, Aaron was on the committee when we struck it. We struck it in 2022. That was part of the striking. So in essence, the committee agrees with you from a policy perspective in what you're doing. We already voted to agree that it shouldn't apply year-round. The procedure, which is
JICHR.
JICH-R,
Yeah.
is administrative, just for our review, it's not our procedure, it's an administrative procedure. So if you want to change that, theoretically you could and bring it back to us and say, we don't want this to be year-round. If you want to keep it year-round as a safeguard against what you're changing in the high school handbook, that's a conversation to have. But technically, the policy is not year-round, the procedure is. So just from a logistic perspective, in 2022, the school committee voted to remove from the policy year-round limitations in the policy and gave administrative rights and control to some of these cases from a year-round perspective. Now, within this request, we're suggesting or saying, in particular, the high school would like to remove the year-round portion of it.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
We have struck for 1 calendar year.
That's specific to captaincy.
That, she's
right?
saying we're not gonna
I'm talking
strip
about that the chemical
leadership for a full
violations,
year.
the school committee policies has a procedure or whatever, in JICHR that
Yep.
says that the MIA 25%, 60%, et cetera, are extended over the summer. That's what I'm talking about. The captaincy piece is not even, I don't think it's in the 2022 version at all. So,
It's not, yeah.
yes, so the year-round is, the only mention of captaincy is in the school district policy handbook and our handbook. So I did not think I had any input over the school committee policies, so I didn't bring up the fact that of whether or not we have or don't have, you know, the MIA 25%, 60%, et cetera, that's currently full year because of the school committee policy. The only thing I can really change and address is what's in my handbook, which is around the captaincy piece. That was my understanding. I mean, if I'm incorrect.
No, okay, that's clarifying.
All right, so what I'm hearing is we're supportive of what you're trying to do from a handbook perspective. There's maybe still some cleanup or some clarification to do around which version of the policy is live and active and whether or not the regulation that supports the policy is consistent with it. I do have just one more question. I'm just sort of trying to understand. In your view, a student in a non-captaincy leadership position, so a class officer, for instance, they are serving as a class officer during the summertime. They don't have an off-season.
Sometimes. Sometimes the elections are the year before. Sometimes they're in the fall.
like freshman
But
class.
captains are but captains are sometimes elected the season before, or most times elected the season before.
Sometimes, yeah.
But we're delineating, there is an off-season because the sport isn't in season. So a class officer is held to a standard during the summer theoretically, even though school's not in session. I don't know what they might be doing in the summer that you know, to serve as a class officer, I don't know what they might actually be doing during the summer, but is it appropriate for you not to have the discretion, because of the way I read this, for you not to have the discretion for an out-of-school year violation for an elected class officer that you don't, you know, you don't have discretion in that case, but you do have discretion in the case of a a captain who's out of season. You follow what I'm getting at?
The kids are not in school in the summer, so to me, they might be elected as a class president, but the consequence would happen when they returned. Or it wouldn't happen because they are not serving in a real capacity over the summer necessarily for class officers. It very infrequently happens with a class officer.
Of course.
It can, but it also could be like the president of the drama club or the president,
Right.
The leader of the band, or there's many other year-long leadership roles that could be taken into consideration. But I think that the way that it's written says that there is discretion based on the severity of the situation. Right now, there's no discretion.
It does say that for captaincies, but then the very following sentence says, a student serving as a leader in a club or activity will be removed from their leadership role. The discretion is only applied to captaincies. That's kind of what I'm getting at.
The
is-
intention would be for both, so I can
Okay.
fix that, yeah. My intention is for both.
All right, I think I finally landed the plane on what my concern was. I want to make sure you also have the discretion that's appropriate in the case of,
makes sense,
roles
yeah.
other than captaincies.
Yeah, I can just flip the sentences around.
That same 2022 update removed our captaincy, related procedure updates, right? So
Yeah.
it did used to exist, that we
Yes.
had captaincy-related
And
requirements.
MIA is controlling, as it should be.
That was part of the reason why we made the
Right.
changes, is for MIA to not be in conflict with MIA all the
Yep.
time, because it was updating and it became too much. So it was to adjust and just say, refer to these MIA procedures. And they are updating, they just released another update. So, yeah, as long as we can get that, language that Sean, I had that kind of similar,
Yeah,
you know the intent.
Yes,
We trust you to make the adjustment. for the
yeah, and I
intent,
can send
think.
it back to the committee if you want to see it again
Yeah.
before.
Yep.
Okay.
Policy conversations get this group going.
Very exciting stuff.
I told you it wasn't going to be as early as you wanted it to be. All right, anything else? Otherwise, I'll take a motion.
So I have a couple other issues that, and some of them I brought up actually before I joined the school committee last year.
The privacy.
And that was particularly, so I'm not sure which order to do that, the valedictorian and salutatorian. When I read the clause that says, in the event of a GPA tie, that sounds like here's going to come a tiebreaker, right? But what it says is, in the event of a tie, the valedictorian and salutatorian will be determined out to the 100th decimal place of the GPA. And I say, well, wait a minute. Everywhere else, it looks like the GPA was already calculated out to the 100th place. So that sentence doesn't make sense to me, in that it sounds like it's going to be a tiebreaker, and then it's not. And it says that what you're going to do instead of a tiebreaker is do what you were already doing. So I wanted that sentence to say, clearly just say, the GPA will be determined out to the 100th place. Take out the part of in the event of a GPA tie. It just says it'll be computed out to the 100th place, and then I appreciate you added the sentence, in the case of ties, co-valedictorian will be named. So that was kind of what
I
I was.
think the point of it is to negate that we're not going out to the 50th decimal point, right? Like, we're stopping at
Right.
2, at the 100th.
But so if you clearly say GPA is computed to the 100th, stop, right? It's not in the case of a tie, because you don't know if.
I can strike that, but the concern of the school council was that we've had several years where there are ties, and how is that defined, and it wasn't actually articulated.
But you don't know it's a tie until you calculate it to a certain point.
Right, but it was not articulated in the handbook at all. And so then we were, what decimal point do you go out to? So, yeah, I can change it to say not in the event of a tie, but.
I don't think you have to strike it, but I think you could say, for the purposes of determining valedictorian and salutatorian, GPA will be determined to the 100th decimal place, period.
Okay. I'll change
Does that work, Jeffrey?
That works, yeah.
Okay.
And the other was in the dance contract. If I go, for example, if I jump ahead to the internet policy, it says, I will respect, I will not access, I will not use, right? So all of those bullets.
I think it was changed, that your concern is already changed in the handbook that I sent you guys, or Olivia sent you.
So if I then go to the dance thing, the first rule says students must do this, students must this. Once a student leaves, And then if I dance, then I will not, I'm like, well, wait a minute.
Are you in the dance contract itself, or are you
Yes.
in the rules?
In the
of-
dance
page are you on,
contract
Jeffrey?
itself, page 72 of the handbook that was sent to us
Yeah.
separately.
Okay.
I appreciate you did add not offend others, because it used to say will not others.
I just want everyone to know that I've retyped all of this
Yes.
last year, so I do take it personally, but I'm not trying not to, but it was a mess and format-wise, and this was really before people were using ChatGPT and things like that, so I retyped this entire thing myself, so there were some errors. I think most of those are corrected. It is in much better shape than it was.
100% agree.
Page 72.
I remember having problems with
It
it
was-
before, yes.
Yeah,
I
and
tried
it was,
to
it was
edit it.
clearly, like somebody cut and
It was
paste an
horrible, yeah.
image into the middle. So
Where
I
are you
appreciate.
referencing?
So could you just change it to students will dance in a style that will not
72.
offend?
It just,
Yeah, but
I feel
where-
like the dance contract is something that gets signed, so like
Yeah, but we
the,
don't actually use, we have an electronic version, but I put this in here for the purposes so that people can see it in the handbook. So the formatting is a little wonky, but we use a Google form at this point, but I can update, it reflects what's in here, it's the same. It's just works better, in a Google form. But where specifically? In the blue box?
Oh, the
in the
if
blue
I
box.
dance.
And which part?
So if I look at the first rules, it says students must attend school on the day,
Yeah.
right? And the second says the students are expected to. But then we get down to the fifth box and it says
Goes from
if
third
I
person to
dance,
first person.
right? So a bunch of these things are students this, and then if I, like, okay, so the first rule should say I must attend school and
Okay,
I must wear
I will change it so it's all in
appropriate,
agreement.
appropriate attire, right? And then the student signs that they're agreeing to all of the rules,
Sure, I will fix that.
okay? Thank you.
Anything else?
No?
All right, why don't we take a motion to approve it as amended?
Okay.
And we will trust Principal Callanan to incorporate this feedback.
Motion to approve the RMHS student handbook as amended,
That's it.
period.
Seconded by Tom. Any further discussion?
No.
Okay, all in favor?
Thank you,
All opposed,
everybody.
6-0. Thank you.
Until next year.
Thank you, Jess.
Thank you, Jess.
All right, district-wide student handbook. Dr. Turner, any opening commentary you want to make here before we discuss this one?
District handbook, so you heard one of the bigger changes, which was in the student handbook, and also there's been new regulations around physical restraint. We have complied with those. I will just say that I've spent a lot of time with our special education department in leadership, and there has been a lot of training that has happened already in terms of restraint. And I also just want to give a shout out to our facilities department, who has made sure that all of our safety rooms in all of our buildings are in compliance with restraint practices. And timeout practices, I should say, too.
Okay, do we want to start with a motion? We'll see if there's any discussion.
Motion to approve the district-wide student handbook.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Tom. Questions or discussion is there?
So it's outside of what Tom would say are the four corners of what was amended here, but there is a section in the RPS handbook regarding directory information that is kind of a pet peeve of mine, that I got the district to remove place of birth from the list of directory information that the district can release without prior approval. Date and place of birth at the time that I originally, in like 2021, objected to it, were things that I felt were useful for identity theft, I didn't understand why that was something that would be listed in here. Subsequently, I found that this language actually comes from MGL, the Massachusetts General Law, that says this is stuff that the district can release without prior, but the state does not require the district to list it, and we should feel free to remove things from here that either don't make sense, like major fields of study, or that we think are not appropriate to release without prior approval, such as place of birth. So I want to get that removed. And I'm not, I think Dr. Turner's mentioned that that's actually somewhere else in a policy that needs to get amended before we can really address it here, but I want to kind of register my objection to the fact that it came back in after I got it removed at some point 5 years ago.
So I remember you having raised this in the past. I have a different view than Dr. Turner. I don't think that the policy articulating I think I would look at it the same as MGL. MGL has a set of information that we are entitled to release. Our policy dictates another set of information where we're entitled to release, which, should be the same or less than what MGL enables, right? I don't see any reason why the handbook can't be a more restrictive set, and I agree with you on things like date of birth that could be privacy concerns. Major fields of study, I think, there are, you might want to talk about a student's intended major, who's going off to some college or something.
Okay.
So I think that one has an application that I can wrap my head around, and I don't think is a huge concern.
There's post-high school plans that might fill that,
Yeah,
but, okay,
maybe,
anyway,
but,
so specifically
maybe,
place of birth is.
But I asked Dr. Turner, I don't know if you had a chance to check in with, well, Jess isn't here, or Lynna, do they see any applications for these pieces of information?
So I specifically asked her about the homeroom study. Homeroom?
Yeah, the end of it is
At the end
directory
of it.
information.
And and I asked her a question about that language as well as you're asking, and they had no concerns. There was no, but I think specifically we would be more, if there was something else to be removed, the homeroom felt like the most relevant, because I don't feel like there's a reason for keeping that, but they couldn't think of other reasons, but I don't remember, I'm sorry, I don't have it with me, but I don't remember us bringing up the question of fields of major. Like that, I'm not sure I would recommend.
Fields of study, yeah.
Fields of study, yeah.
And I don't know how you feel. I don't feel like that one is a huge risk from a privacy perspective. I think date of birth is, or place of birth is a big.
Place of birth, definitely. Date of birth, I do wonder, I was in Coolidge one time, and there's like birthdays for the month, right? So would the students have to give prior approval to have their name listed on that? So like, okay, maybe I can see why birthdays was there, but place of birth, particularly now with immigration people coming in and saying, where were you born, where were you born, were you born, that needs to get removed.
So the suggestion then is to strike place of birth from the handbook as one of the items we may publish.
Yeah.
I have the same view of Dr. Turner. It's opposite of your view, that it's in the policy, and we shouldn't be more restrictive than the policy, or less restrictive than the policy.
No, we'd be more restrictive.
More restrictive.
We'd be telling the district, even though
The policy
Even though
should
the
not be out
policy-
of alignment with the school committee procedures. I mean, the handbook should not be out of alignment with school committee procedures. It needs to be aligned with what we're saying, and it shouldn't be doing less than what we say.
But maybe we need to change.
If we want to talk about that in the policy subcommittee, we can talk about that in the policy subcommittee. It's actually a procedure is what it is. It's actually not even a policy. It's a procedure that it's in.
I mean, I
So
think
it's
if we
actually
were to agree
administrative.
here that we don't want it in the handbook, we probably could bypass the policy subcommittee and just bring it as a policy update here.
If people wanted to do that.
We've
that's an
talked
option.
about, in the past, we've talked about if we think there's something substantive enough that the policy subcommittee needs to do homework and research and drafting and things like that, then that makes sense, but in other cases, it can come straight to the committee. All right, well, what do folks think on the merits? I understand your point, but what do folks think on the merits? I don't agree with it, but I understand it.
It's fine. I'm sort of, I can sort of buy, although and then it gets undercut by other things, the, identity theft conversation. I think if you're willing to include an address, a telephone listing, a date of birth, those are more of an issue than place of birth. I'm gonna say, as soon as you started saying immigration-related stuff, that's when you lost me, because I think there's a lot that's fear and loathing that's going on, but that's real. So, it is what it is, but I would say if it's that concern, then you need to be thinking more things that are more directly used as a result of identity theft. In which case, now you're asking questions like, what can we give? Homeroom is more of a question of elementary grade. It's not not a high school, so there's no homeroom question from a high school perspective. But elementary, what can I give to the class parents? Right? You start there's logistics that start going down to some of these conversations, and you do it, to your point though, birthdays, like, okay, we're gonna celebrate so-and-so's birthday in the elementary level. Okay, now we can't. You just when you start unraveling the limitations or reduce or whatnot, that part of the reason why this is in there is because of those kind of use cases that are more benign and more, celebratory in many cases than the concern. And if you're not getting public records requests saying, hey, give me this, then are we creating a problem when there's no problem, and in fact causing problems for things that would normally be a relatively useful use case?
I think the argument from a, sort of privacy perspective would be, we should seek to put ourselves in a position to release as little as necessary and has a sort of valid application to school, to the function of schools.
Yep.
And, my point of asking Dr. Turner to check in with Principal Callanan and Lina was, is there a meaningful practical application of date of birth? And you could probably extend
Date or
it.
place?
Place of birth, sorry, that we can think of that, that we would lose with that. With the others, I think you just articulated it. Homeroom, a teacher may want to send home a list of, these are all the students, these are I get an elementary school. These are the first names of all the students, so if you're doing Valentine's, make sure you do one for every student, right? That could be construed as publishing the homeroom of students, right? Date of birth, we've already talked about a classroom calendar that has, students' names on their date of birth. So there are practical, use cases that are relevant to the operation of school for most, if not all of these other ones. I think place of birth stands out to me as an outlier in that way.
Not that we do this, but place of birth is often listed on like a sports-related.
I'd see that's the college level.
I mean, that's what I
A
said.
200-pound line breaker out of Texas, is our,
right,
like, okay,
right,
but
exactly.
but
So
that's not what we see.
It'd be pretty boring here. It'd be Boston, 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 Boston.
Not true,
No,
not true,
I'm just-
right?
I know.
We have
I know, we have plenty of people who moved into town for
plenty of
school. so,
people who,
I'm teasing, but we don't do it, to your point, right? And it's not, I don't know, I don't view it as terribly relevant in a local
school
school
level, yeah.
context.
Yeah, I mean, I think the other argument you could make would be a similar thing. You could celebrate, cultural-related issues based upon place of birth, right? If that goes to a homeroom type construct. I'm not focused on the worry of cultural issues, I'm focused on the celebration. You could do the same thing. Like if I'm gonna celebrate a certain month that means something, the place of birth might be interesting. Hey, we have 2 kids from this place and 3 kids from that
But
place.
I think you could celebrate that as where the parents were from or something, as opposed to specifically where was the child born there or,
I
his
mean,
parents. So
but we're not allowed to release that. Right, so it becomes, this is what we are legally allowed to release. And I mean, whether we don't want to release it is a fair conversation. I'm not opposed to the conversation, obviously, we're engaging in it. But what you're then saying is something that's not on that list.
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard for me to imagine a scenario where we'd have a cultural celebration where we'd be saying, without, parent or student consent, hey, we're celebrating Argentina today because so-and-so's from Argentina, or we're celebrating Germany today because so-and-so's from Germany.
We're celebrating Colorado today because so-and-so's from Colorado. It doesn't have to be out of the country. Could be something else.
Well, I mean,
It could be, yeah, it could be somewhere else.
ethnicity is
You're looking for it in the handbook? or-
different than
Wherever we're,
place of birth,
Well, I
too.
know.
Like,
Yeah, exactly.
It is
or either, because I didn't see it.
Not all about ethnicity.
JRAR in the policy.
I never got a birthday list, though. As a elementary parent, I never, ever got, as
No.
a room parent,
No?
I feel like at the room
Never.
parents, that they actually had sign-up lists to say, yes, I want to be included.
Yeah.
but it was only like
Yeah, as a
parents' email, parents' cell
As a
phone,
practice, we are
home
more
address.
cautious, we are typically more cautious
we
than
are
the
more
policy and the handbook
cautious,
allow. And we require,
I never
and teachers
got into
look for parents to
birthdays as
opt
a room
in.
parent.
Yeah, I've always had to opt in if I wanted a class list.
Yeah, they've gotten more and more strict about it, but.
Yeah.
which
All
is
right.
against the
thing.
policy to a degree, right?
Well-
But it is,
But
it's fine,
why
right?
do I need everybody's
Is there-
birthday?
Is there anything else? We
can't
can
bring
come back
in
to this if we need to.
cupcakes,
Is there
so-
anything else, is there anything else outside of this place of birth debate on the handbook? Just to keep us moving
Not on the
forward.
handbook, but I do think it's worth revisiting the list of items, and maybe there's just a clause we need to put in there around purpose and intent of herb use kind of thing.
To align the policy?
Yes, and I think from a privacy perspective,
Oh,
from
yeah.
all kinds of things, I think we should probably take a second look at that.
Yeah, it'd be nice if the policy had something like, you know, student and family privacy should be, should be considered,
and what's the standard?
Or the minimum amount of information
What's the
available,
HIPAA
required, you know.
type, like what's the
Yeah,
minimum?
yeah.
It's already got FERPA-related requirements in it, right? So it does have that as part of the limitation.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but this is specifically directory information, right?
exactly.
And
Yep.
phone number and address are in the phone, in the directory, if you will, but place of birth generally is not.
So to say legally, we have the right to do this, or you have the right to, you have the right to do this. And just as a point of order, based on the conversation all night tonight, is that something that I have, that I'm interested in is seeing if we can get the policy committee to meet on a regular basis so that we can kind of discuss some of these items and make recommendations in sort of a more like organized fashion. It does feel like it's worth reviewing some of things and how it's listed, because I worry for our families that there are many different ways in which they could try to find the policies. It's really hard for me to try to find policies really quick here, just as a new person, and so I would just, it's a request that the policy committee meets with me regularly so that we can kind of move forward in a more orderly fashion for you.
We've had surges of policy committee meeting, but there's significant overlap with the policy committee and the negotiation committee at the moment. So, yeah, it's, fair point.
We have had good years. We've had bad years. We've had good years, though.
Yeah. All right, any,
Ability is
Not blaming,
the biggest ability is availability.
years, not the last 2 years.
any other discussion on the handbook? So let's just be a little bit categorical here. I'll make an amendment to strike place of birth. And let's vote on that, and then we'll move forward from there. So I move to amend the handbook by removing the reference to place of birth in the directory information we can publish.
Second.
Seconded by Laura. Is there any further discussion on the amendment? All in favor? All opposed? 5-1, sorry, Tom. All
Get
right,
used to it.
returning to the main motion, any further discussion on the handbook? Do we already have a motion to accept the handbook? To approve the handbook?
I can do it again.
Let's do it again, just
Okay.
to,
Motion to approve the district-wide student handbook as amended.
is there a second?
Second?
Seconded by Jeffrey. Any further discussion? All in favor? All opposed?
Sorry, in favor.
You're in favor. Tom's in favor.
I was like-
Let's do that again. All in favor? Okay.
Can I make a friendly
All
amendment
opposed?
to your motion?
Yeah, I think so. I've already.
Even though
we've
it's
already-
passed? Can I motion to reconsider real quick? Because you're going to want this friendly amendment, just trust me.
Sure.
Second?
I second your motion to reconsider. And we
All in
can have
favor of
discussion, we can have
reconsidering?
discussion about it before we go to before we take a vote to reconsider. Go ahead. What are we voting on?
You just said, I motion to strike place of birth.
From the directory information that can be
So
published.
what it's going to read now is telephone listing, comma, date and, comma, major fields of study.
What he said was reference to place of birth.
I did say the reference to place of birth, which I think includes the grammatical tools surrounding it. So I am going to vote against your motion to reconsider. Any further discussion on the motion to reconsider? All in favor? All opposed to the motion to reconsider? This leaves us where we left off. Okay, great. All right. I know, I'm trying, I'm really trying here. All right. I've been trying to just sort of say, here's where we have consensus, let's move on. All right, let's go to Dr. Turner. Any operational updates beyond your report earlier this evening?
So when the recommendation was to have an operational update, I asked the 3 new departments that are underneath me, facilities, IT, and food services, to give me a report. Unsurprisingly, since this is written, they are very proud of the work that they've done, and they've written me a very long list of updates. If you are okay with it, I would love to email you this update for your review, and just give a few highlights just for time. Would that be appropriate?
Please, I think
We
for
want
our,
to include that in the
our
revised
families
packet, or-
at home, any concerns we have heading into the beginning of the
There are
school
no
year as well?
concerns.
Okay.
A lot of work has been done in terms of updates to the building. I just mentioned the work of our facilities department with our safety rooms. And I'll just give a shout out to all of our facility teams. I've gotten to meet all of our custodial crew. They are very proud of the buildings, and we have some old buildings, and they look beautiful. And I just am really, really impressed with the level of seriousness that they take it. And I'll just say that that's something we should see as a real privilege that we have, something we should be proud about. Our IT department has been working really hard. They have been updating to Windows 11, which has been a lot of work. And I've gotten to learn a lot about the work that's going on with them, and I'm grateful for their work. Food Services has been working hard through the summer with our camps and some of the work that they're doing with catering. I think that there's a plan to do a presentation for you with more detail about our food services, so I'll leave it at that in the fall.
Only if she brings snacks.
The food is good.
By 8
As you know
p.m.,
at the retreat, the food
a little-
is very, very strong.
Little pick-me-up.
But, yeah, if it's okay for timing, I would love to share this with you, because they are very proud of the work that they've been doing.
Absolutely. Okay, I believe, if I'm not out of order here, we're moving to superintendent's goals. So Dr. Turner, do you want to kick us off here as well?
Yeah, so I I just shared with you my entry plan at our last meeting, and in line with the next step of sharing with my goals. This was a part of our conversation at the new superintendent's program that we're participating in through my coach, which is part of the new superintendent's program. I got some guidance on what goals should look like in your first year. There's a DESE actually report that is that gives very clear language of recommended goals for new superintendents. I looked at Dr. Milichewski's presentation to you in his first year. These 3 goals are in line with what he has, that he had. I think self-explanatory in the plan of the timeline that what I'm looking for. As you know, the entry plan is supposed to be leading to our next strategic plan, which would be the lion's share of the work in the spring. I've been really grateful of the work of the new superintendent's program. That's a monthly meeting, so that feels appropriate in terms of the work there. I don't think there's anything else to share in terms of this. As you know, that there's part of the evaluation process, you're evaluating me on a lot of other things. Goal setting, I just met with our principals about that I'll be their primary evaluator. And I just emphasize that goal setting is, in my opinion, the most important of the evaluation process, because it's the opportunity for the educator to reflect on in terms of work. It's really what they're honing in on in terms of the overall evaluation. You are my evaluator, and so you can choose how you wish in terms of how you'll evaluate me, but I'll just share that's sort of the model that I went into this with. These are 3 priority areas to set me up for success as your superintendent.
Great. Any discussion before we move to a motion?
Yes.
Go ahead, Tom.
I, for one, am not ready to approve these because I think it's missing 2 very important things that Dr. Turner's already engaged in and is really important for us this year. I understand why the 3 are the 3, and I support the 3 that are there, but I think there needs to be at least a 4th and maybe a 5th, depending on how we word it. We cannot not include something about finances in the override in this goal setting. That's like one of the major roles that he has over the next, 9 to 12 months, at least the next 4, or 3, if I can get my math right. So, and potentially, depending how November goes, potentially longer. So I have a hard time not including a goal that includes education of the community around the financial needs for, the override in a way that is compliant with MGL, right? So he's not influencing or whatever, but he's providing all the facts and all the stuff he's already doing. So some of it he should take credit for the work he's already done, but it needs to be a goal for this year. And the second one being Killam, right? The support and alignment with Lindsay and the work she's doing, and with Carla and the rest of the committee and the work they're doing. And any planning that needs to go into next year, depending upon when and how it opens and all that kind of fun stuff, I think needs to be part of the goal set too. It's a little bit unfair to Dr. Turner because Dr. Milichewski didn't enter with those kind of constraints on him. But it needs to be there because otherwise we're missing the 2 biggest things that we have going on in the next year.
I think it's a fair point. My suggestion would be, Tom, to broaden a little bit the definition of goal 2, maintaining momentum during the transition, because both of those items were to some effect underway when he got here. And then we could detail in key actions sort of what the expectation is against each of those. That would be my suggestion, just to keep it relatively clean, but just one approach.
I would echo that suggestion, Sean. I was thinking about the Killam stuff not Killam, override stuff kind of falling into that first bucket around most critical needs and making sure sharing information. So I wondered if we just clearly state in key actions, either under 2 for both Killam and override. And I guess my concern around the goal, how would we evaluate? Like what would your suggestion be for a goal related to Killam or the override, Tom?
I mean, I think there's a goal that is very specifically around, the financial planning and analysis and distribution of information around it and being able to respond or react depending on how things come. I don't think it's necessarily just maintaining momentum because I don't think there was really any momentum around the override before Dr. Turner got here, right? Fair or unfair. There was a tiny little bit, but there was absolutely no momentum there. In fact, but getting the override to pass is tied to momentum, so I get your point in that regard, Sean. In terms of how I would word it, I hadn't really thought about that just because of the workday as it is right now. As some of us know, we go through those things. But I did think it was important that we figured out how to do it. And I think the Killam one was more along the lines of, support, strategy, planning, student location / moving locations, depending on what happens with the building. And it doesn't open until February 28th, if I remember right. So, there's some planning that has to happen this year to prepare for next school year. And I would think, but Sean, you're closer to it than I am, in terms of actually being on the committee these days. Yep. So, I think there's some work there that, while Lindsay's phenomenal, right, and Carl is doing a great job, there's going to be a need for, the superintendent to be the superintendent.
There's a strategic planning element, there's also a practical element, it's ongoing engagement with the MSBA and so forth. So, there's no urgency for us to adopt this tonight, unless others feel strongly, maybe we take a run at thinking through how to reflect both of those, either embedded in these or add another goal or 2. I agree with Tom's observation, it's sort of not fair, although a lot of times when you hire a new superintendent, things sort of are on fire and there's a difficult environment, but not because things are on fire, we just have a few tough things going on right now. So I think it's fair feedback personally. I'd suggest we table it for this evening and come back to it at our next meeting.
I think it's very fair, and as you know, I've been spending a lot of time on those 2 topics. Lindsay's asked me to join her at every meeting, so I've been joining every meeting for Killam. And that's really interesting work. Actually, I think I shared, I drive by Killam every day, so I get to do a little operational check. So I'm happy to think through that and make a proposal. I've already reached out to my coach to see if there's maybe some other examples of districts that have had that type of goal. So I'm happy to work on it and come back to you on it.
Okay.
And I'm hearing in terms of the override, because I'm not hearing that a successful override is tied to my evaluation.
I was going to say that too. I'm like,
doesn't
wouldn't be
seem- yeah.
failing the goal, but
No, I
because
mean,
the goal would have to extend into like creating a balanced budget, whether,
Yes.
you know.
So I'm hearing a
Yes.
financial
Yes.
question and a community relations education.
It's a community relations, education, communications piece, and a financial planning exercise one way or the other,
So
right?
I'm happy to work on that and draft and share it.
Go ahead,
Can
Sarah.
I make a suggestion too, and as you're thinking it through, I have my OKR brain going of like, what is the objective? It's an operational execution type of objective. And so both of those things to me fall into the key action, key result type bucket of how are we evaluating your overall operational execution, or whatever you want to call it. So maybe it's tweaking 2 or pulling it apart into 2 and a third, fourth one.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll table that one for this evening. Everyone good with that? Okay. We'll move to the adopt.
The table, since you have a vote already on the agenda?
Did we move, it's on the agenda, but we didn't take the motion, though. We didn't put the motion on
We
the
have
floor.
not put a motion out.
So we'll just, I guess we could table it. We could formally table it.
Move to table the superintendent's goals.
Second.
Seconded by Tom. Any further discussion on that? All in favor? All opposed? Okay, thank you. All right, Protect Act. So the context here, we got an email from Colby's office, I think late Tuesday-ish, maybe, indicating that there was a relatively timely compliance need. The Protect Act, which was signed into law by the governor earlier this month, has a September 1st requirement for districts to have a policy which is compliant with the Protect Act. There's a model policy which was propagated by the administration, which is directly by the Healy administration, which is interesting. It's usually comes from DESE or MASC or some other source. So that's, an oddity, helpful given the timeline potentially. The one thing I will say is that though it was propagated by the governor's office, the attorney general also weighed in, sort of indicating that policy was, helpful and appropriate, and would suggest that policy would be considered compliant, with state law from the attorney general's perspective. Colby's office shared with us a version of the policy, that they're recommending to districts, which is, based on that, on the governor's office's model policy. The gist of the the Protect Act, there's a big political discussion here, but the gist of the Protect Act is that it sort of clarifies / limits the expectation of local and state involvement in, various law enforcement activities, is sort of the gist of it. It's articulated as ensuring that local and state government agencies are acting in a way that's consistent with the Massachusetts state constitution. And I will probably say nothing else and just leave it at that. So go ahead, Sarah.
Can I ask a clarifying question? So the policy is required to be in place by September 1st. What
Yep.
about the procedures that are mentioned in the policy? So procedures shall include these things. I don't think I saw any.
Is it not in the packet? There are model
Yeah, they're
procedures
in
as
here.
well.
The procedures shall
Yeah.
include.
Procedures are not in there.
Procedures aren't in this packet that I'm
No,
looking
they're
at.
not.
Anyway. It says like procedures for
List the
notifying
things
a
that should
student.
be in the procedures,
Yeah,
but
it
it's
doesn't
not
list
the
I mean, I
procedures themselves.
can pull it up. I think we have it. We have
Okay.
it.
So, Sean, I'm going to object to this policy as it's written.
Go for it, Tom.
I think it's really poorly written, frankly. You never should be listing a governor's name in a policy. I think that's bad form. And I think as you go through this, actually MASC did come out with a model today. So if we wanted to talk about that, we could talk about that. The policy as written has no legal references, has no cross-references, all of which should be included. And MASC has done a much better job, if we do want to look at it. I assume as well, you're wanting to waive, like you said at the beginning of the meeting, the dual reading, which is necessary for new policies. While the state law says something has to be in place by September 1st, there's many cases where we're supposed to do certain things by certain times and we haven't. So I don't feel the pressure to do it by September 1st personally. I'd rather do it right. And the one that's in the packet is, in my mind, it's bad form. If you want me to, I have the mass policy in front of me. If you
Yeah,
want
I
me to
do,
pull it
I
up.
do too.
Huh?
Sorry,
I was trying to find the link.
the MASC policy, you'd have to, I
They have a file
I
number?
can share it.
I have it, yeah, they have a file number too, exactly.
It's ACL.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'd have to navigate to it from the MASC.
I have it right now if you
email
want me to
updates.
open it.
I've got it right here.
In the four that we got from our attorneys, there are procedures, just was not, but I'm looking at the email now.
To zoom a little further. So the options available to us are, we adopt the MASC model policy, which does have a policy reference, which is, their recommended one is ACL, although I believe I've seen other instances where towns have adopted it and titled it ACH. ACL makes more sense, given that the first sort of substantive word is law enforcement. So the options are to adopt this one, which is the MASC version of the policy, which, as Tom suggests, is sort of a more typical policy and not referencing the governor, but also including appropriate, sort of cross-references at the end. Adopt the adopt the policy as suggested by Stoneman Chandler Miller, which is very directly based on the Healy administration's guidance, or not to adopt something tonight.
So if we don't adopt something tonight, when's the next opportunity, and what likely consequences would there be for us not adopting it by the state deadline of September 1st?
September 10th is our next meeting.
Sorry?
September 10th is our next meeting.
There's zero consequences.
Yeah, I don't think there are likely to be consequences for us being
I mean, other than maybe somebody writing a newspaper article and said, we didn't,
a week or 10 days late.
We followed our own rules by doing a two policy reading and choosing to use one that is more substantive than the one that was given to us in the packet.
Our rules do allow for us to
Make
dispense with the
exceptions.
second reading on an emergency basis, as you
It's
know.
not an
So,
emergency in my mind, but yes.
well, compliance with state law, some might argue, is an emergency. But I certainly, I think it's viable to use that path, but I hear your points, Tom.
If people wanted to approve anything, I would approve the MASC personally. If you look at it, it's far cleaner, it's far more consistent, it includes references as mentioned, et cetera. All we have to do is just change the district and put Reading Public Schools in it or whatever.
I mean, I have no internet, so I have no way to read it, so
It's in front of you.
I would suggest some procedures for the
I can't read that either.
Oh, all right.
Procedures
Sorry.
would be Dr. Turner and his staff's fault, not
So-
fault, but responsibility.
So Stoneman Chandler Miller, there's a second document that has procedures in it. The beginning of it still shares what your concern is in terms of naming Governor Healy, but there are specific
Yeah,
procedures.
that should be struck.
So if you want to wait till September 10th, we can share that's the second set of procedures with you.
Aaron, I mean, broadly speaking, substantively, this is the same, but it addresses Tom's concerns, which I think are fair. It is certainly an unusual, approach.
Yeah.
And it wasn't written to be in any way parallel to the structure of a typical school committee policy. It's written more as a
press release, right?
campaign or press release, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Could we, in theory, go option, whatever letter that was, vote to adopt the MASC one and agree to review the procedures at a later date, since it doesn't spell out a date they have to be in place, and then,
We could. I don't recall. I'd have to go look at the language to see if the procedures have to be adopted by the first. But I think it would show, I mean, if Andrea Campbell really wanted to make an example of somebody, it would show good faith at least that we adopted the policy and we're working on the procedures. I'm not terribly concerned about that, because the conversation we're having here is not one of opposition to the intent here. It's just sort of a timing and structural thing. So that would be my suggestion, is we also could amend the policy. We could amend it as soon as the next meeting. If there's anything about the model policy that folks are uncomfortable with, we could amend it as soon as the next meeting if we choose to adopt it tonight.
For what it's worth, the model policy, all those bullets are what the law says.
Yeah.
Like, it's nothing,
I have no concern that it's not compliant.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, if anything, you could say it could be a slimmed down policy versus this, but it doesn't, nothing is out of whack in the model policy, and it gives, as I said, much more cross-reference to what things should be addressed. The only thing it might cause is we have to go back to those other ones and cross-reference this now.
Guess we gotta get that policy subcommittee back together.
Policy work. Time to get the band back together.
All right, so let me make a motion.
Availability.
I know. Let me make a motion just to keep us moving, and we'll see
Yeah.
where we land on this. So I'll move to adopt as policy ACL, the model policy provided by MASC with appropriate sort of replacements of the Reading-specific context. So that would include in Reading Public Schools and specifying that it's the superintendent that implements.
Second.
Any further discussion? All right, and as anybody thinks about this, if you want to approach it differently or reopen this discussion in September or beyond, we can certainly do that, but this is a step forward for now. All right, no further discussion, all in favor? All opposed? And it carries 6-0. Okay.
Could one of you has it open, just email me and Olivia, so that
Yes.
she knows to work off of that
Yes, I can do that.
procedures. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Let me just do that now before I forget. Okay, and then that brings us to, I think, the last thing on our agenda was override discussion. I'm planning to just put this as a standing item on our agenda for any updates or discussion that the group wants to have. I don't have anything in particular to share tonight. I think we've all been pretty connected to some of the, the goings-on in terms of the town webinars and whatnot. Go ahead, Jeffrey.
There's one next week
Monday.
that we're posted for.
There's one on the 31st that we were posted for. Are you looking for one of us to
Laura will-
participate?
Yeah, yes, Olivia emailed me today, and I can do the Monday one.
Okay, Laura is going to be our primary speaker on Monday, but we are posted if anybody would like to attend.
Two quick updates is that October 14th, we've agreed with the town that we're going to host an event, so I've shared it with the principals. The plan is to figure out a way to invite community members into at least one of our buildings to learn about what's going on in our school system. And so I have no more information other than that, except that we're going to kind of work through legalities around doing that. But October 14th is something we're planning to open up at least one of our schools to the community, to members of our community. So I will update you on that. The second is that our CPAC graciously has offered to host an event for Q&A. There'll be another school-side event. So we'll reach out to you for your help with that. There's some other groups that have reached out to want to offer specifically on the school side. So I'll be
Great.
keep you up to date on that.
So CPAC are not school employees, right? So they're fine to do that.
Yep.
I just want to make sure we don't do it in a school building.
Correct.
Okay. Tom, do you see, you look contemplative over there?
I think it's correct. One of the CPAC members is a teacher in another district, so it doesn't matter. I was just trying to make sure she's not a teacher in our district as well.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point.
Right, so that's what I was just that's what I was racking my brain about.
Yeah. But they, in their individual capacity, could
Yes.
Outside of the
participate
school
in that and advocate if they chose to.
Yes.
Yeah. As long as we don't host it in a school building and use district resources to promote
Right.
an advocacy event.
Don't like print flyers in the school.
Right. Okay. Anything else on override? Otherwise, we'll take a
It's
final
just,
motion.
it's a really minor note, but it's of interest, especially based on our conversation during the offsite. There was a student who's going for his Eagle badge who had to interview a public servant, and that student decided to interview me on the override. So I talked him through what was going on, and one of his questions is, how can students help? So
Good.
I used sort of some of that conversation as well, and we'll see what that pans out to. But the other question was what can he tell his advisor, who happens to be a teacher in town? And I said, you can tell them this, that they can't do certain things, so, using their materials, but they should also be hearing that from their own union as necessary, so. It was interesting that was the topic of conversation that he wanted to talk about, was the override, so it's not somebody who I would have expected to ask that question either, so it does mean that people are starting to hear the news.
Get some more Eagle Scouts between now and November. All right. Any final motions?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Mercifully, all in favor? All opposed, and we are adjourned. Thanks, everyone.
Okay.